Board of Custer County Commissioners meeting will come to order. Let the record show today is December the 18th at 9:00 a.m. I have asked Mr. Monty Lee if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You would, sir?
Is Ruth covered? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is way better than having one or two people sitting down. Good morning, sir. You guys, you're welcome to grab a chair and kind of ease in here where you can sit by Kelly or wherever you'd like.
Thank you.
We'll make whatever arrangements we need to. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Flower.
Present.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner Prince.
Present.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper present.
Thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, amendments to the agenda?
I have none.
Mr. Kanda?
None.
Let me grab, I don't believe I have any as well, but I had all my documents up and now they're gone. I've certainly got some things under commissioner items, but I think they're more appropriate there than changing the agenda. So that will move forward. Audience introductions. We'll start out in the hallway. Somebody got to be first.
Where you live?
Yeah.
Richard Logan and Schultz Ranch Road.
Okay, and let me explain too. One of the reasons we do this is so our secretary can record who is here. So if you can speak up loud enough for her to hear and understand you. If you got a weird name like Bob, tell us how you want to spell that, B-O-B or B-O-B. That would help.
Charles Bowden, rural Custer County.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Patty Logan, Schultz Ranch.
Brad Bradbury, Westcliff.
Monty Lee, rural.
Bob Hollingsworth, rural.
Bob Fulton, town of Westcliff.
Dale Mullen, rural.
Steve Laswell, Silvercliff.
Wilson Jarvis.
Oh!
The door is speaking.
Oh!
Dan Barker, rural.
Lisa Drew, the West Custer County Hospital District.
Maddie Bird, Westcliff.
Dave Simpson, rural. Chris Everoth, Rosita.
Lori Tuis, Westcliff.
John Tuis, Westcliff.
Dallas Anderson, rural Westcliff.
John Carroll, rural.
Jim Fox, rural.
Jackie Davis for the Sentinel.
I guess it's me, Larry Weber, Silvercliff.
James Phelps, Rosita.
Travis Roundtree, rural.
Randy Knight, DFW, Westcliff. Bert Daniels, VFW, Lake Louise.
Okay, welcome. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. Again, I feel uncomfortable about you having to stand, so I don't know what to do about that necessarily. I guess you could sit on Brenda's desk, but
No.
no. Oh, Brenda's back there. I thought she had left. Thank you and good morning.
Might
Appreciate
after
that. Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of minutes.
I move we approve the minutes for 11:30, 12:04, and 12:05.
Okay, I believe it is 11:29. Is that correct? It's on the agenda as 11:30, but it should have been the 29th.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 29th, December 4th, and December 5th. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries. Minutes have been approved. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your work on getting those to us. Commissioner items. Commissioner Prince, would you begin, please?
Sure. Since our last BOCC meeting, I met with Donna Harvey and we interviewed several people for the maintenance job, and we had a consensus on filling that position. I believe that job started yesterday.
Yes, sir. Yep.
The three of us met with VSO in his interim transitional period that we have. We all met with that. I met with a very extensive and long tourism board meeting. I'd like to say that I feel that they're really getting back on track. I feel like they made some excellent decisions in this last meeting. They made some adjustments to their bylaws. They talked about terms. They were very cooperative and I think very productive. And then I met with the Early Childhood Development Corporation, who does just wonderful things for our community. And that's kind of what I've done since the last meeting.
Okay, good. And they had a resignation off the tourism board, which created open position.
Right.
So they're accepting.
Correct. They accepted it. We have, I believe, is it 1 or 2 letters of interest, Ms. Burton? I know we got 1.
For tourism?
We got two letters of interest, and both candidates seem like they're well qualified. And that would be an addition to the board.
I would just make a note of my calendar. December the 7th, my wife and I hosted a Christmas party for the Fair Board, so that was fun. All 3 of the commissioners on December the 8th attended Cleo Day's funeral in Canyon City, former 2-term commissioner out of Wetmore. On the 9th, the Republican Central Committee held their Christmas party at the Alpine Restaurant. I attended that. I also attended a strategic planning meeting for Altitude Fitness at Kathy Snow's residence in Westcliff. I was invited to sit in on that meeting and in an effort to try to develop some kind of plan of moving forward with Altitude Fitness. I think it's probably reasonably well known that they're struggling with membership and that kind of thing, so I was asked to sit in on that meeting. December the 12th, I attended a meeting with DSO officer and Roger Watkins over in the DSO building, which I believe you alluded to in your report as well. And then December 13th, I attended the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District meeting in Salida with a Christmas party following that. So, and I wanted to mention that at that meeting, the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District meeting, Bob Sinderhoff serves as the chair of that organization and has for some years. They have voted to file a water augmentation plan for eastern Fremont County and Custer County with the state water courts. That motion was approved at that meeting, so subsequent to that, and I don't know when, if they have or will be filing a water augmentation plan. It's been somewhat controversial over the years. I have reached out to some people and asked them to meet tomorrow evening to just have a general discussion about water. It's not a commissioners meeting. I just feel like I'm kind of behind the 8 ball in knowing everything I should know about that. So certainly it's an open meeting. You'd be welcome to attend, gentlemen, or anyone else that wants to do that. If that is going to be at the conference room in the Rancher's Roost at 6:30 tomorrow evening. No, I lied. I'm sorry. I'm way off base. Okay. Yeah, I misinformed you. That is going to be in here tomorrow evening at 6:30. I was thinking of December the 20th. So, yeah, we're going to meet here in the Commissioner's boardroom. If we get more than we can fit in here, I've checked with the courts and we can meet in the courtroom if we need to. So, and then I just want to give you a brief update on where we're at with the land sales projects. I might defer to counsel here because I believe he's probably a little more up on where we're at exactly on the sale of the Grape Creek land, but my understanding is that we were waiting for funds to be wired subsequent to us providing the title insurance. Is that correct? Sure.
Well, we had I took all the paperwork to Stewart Title in Canyon City, and they got the commitment back to us, the requirements that need to be satisfied. I have a couple of documents that you will need to sign. I do need to find out if we have a copy of the survey that Kit Scheid did. we will need that. And they sent me two documents they required to be signed. I got a letter from JD stating that there are no taxes owed on that property for 2018. I've reached out to the buyer in Texas, suggesting 3 different ways of actually handling the exchange of funds and the deed. As I explained to all of you, I think in an email, when I went to Stewart Title, the cost was $639 for the title insurance policy, but then I was surprised they were going to charge another $400 to do the closing, and this is something so simple, even I can handle that, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of the closing. This is a matter of getting the deed signed, and we'll have it ready to go to be recorded, and as soon as the funds are received, probably through the bank, I'll have the bank act as the go-between on that, then we can record the deed, and everything will be done on that. I'm going into Canyon City on Friday. I'm going to deliver all the other paperwork to them, and by then I should have an answer back from Big E Ranch as to how they want to handle the exchange of funds.
I guess I gave that legal description to Jackie.
Well, I need the actual survey that Kit did. I mean,
Okay.
he's got the legal description, but he did a survey. JD said it was not recorded with his office sometimes, or recorded and then filed upstairs, but you haven't seen anything like
I
that.
haven't, but I can look in our surveys and see.
Okay,
Just
I sent an email to Kit last night. I haven't heard from him yet about getting a copy of that survey, because I do need to have that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the legal description, so, and I thought that may have been pulled off of the paperwork that went with the reclamation of that property. I don't know that, so certainly.
And I'm not sure. The county acquired it back in 1975 from Ben Kettle, and so there was a legal description there. I assume Kit just verified that.
And that's what I'm wondering. So you've reached out to him, though? So.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good. And then just a quick update. We are in the process. We've sent to the 2 papers a notice of intent to sell 35 acres plus or minus out in Rosita that we had talked about before, so that should be coming out in the papers. Forthcoming, I would assume, this next week. But, I think that went in as a legal notice, so. Other than that, that's all I've got.
Sounds pretty good. A couple quick things, sort of a rehash of what you just heard, but the VSO meeting I thought was very good. We're going to miss Tim. I wish he could stay. But I was impressed with, was it Roger? I think he's really qualified, and I think it's going to be a big benefit. I wish we could keep him full-time, but it's going to be half-time for now. Until we get somebody. And let's see, is there anything else we need to talk about?
No, that's on the agenda.
We got a couple other things. The tourism board, I had another couple of people interested, and I'll make sure that they get their notices in for us to consider. Also, Carol Custer's in the hospital, and we probably ought to send her a note or something, I think, recognition. I was concerned about that.
I would be fine if we took a little dispersion, everybody sent some flowers or something.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Well, by consent, I'll work with Brenda and we'll make that happen. I think she's in room 400 Memorial, so
Right.
I'll verify that.
And then big things I've been working since our last meeting has been the strat plan for the county, and most of you and everybody here has probably seen notices out on the street, both in media, electronic media, Facebook, Custer County website. We've had a great turnout. I mean, nobody likes to take a survey, but if you've watched what's happened, if you don't, then your voice doesn't get the weight it should have. And this is not an opinion, this is not a statistically significant poll, it's an opinion poll. We want your input, everybody's input on what we think the direction of the county ought to be for our development. And so far we've had over 450 responses online. Hard copies been disseminated, and I took a box over to the school. They'll be sending them home with all the kids. to take out and to their parents, those that don't have computers or that hate to get on them, can fill out the hard copy, and I've got a person lined up to enter the data after we collect them. Get it back online, that way we can manipulate the data a little bit to make it presentable. We have hard copies in the courthouse here, we have hard copy, we have, Kelly, you set up the election boxes to receive the surveys, right? Including the outside box. And then businesses around town, bank included, other businesses have them, and we'll gather them up there and get them entered. Then there's an ad campaign going to go on to make sure that this is not the commissioner's strategic plan, that we are going to say this is what we think is best. It's the county, it's our bosses that are having that input, and the facilitator that we have, it's not hers either. It's the process of doing business with people. So in that light, there's a couple ads that we'll put out, one this week and next week, that are going to announce where the first two meetings are. The first one's the 24th of January for everybody to come to. We have a task force of 8 or 9 people that'll be actively working behind the scenes and working in the meetings as well. And we have about 15 people we're interviewing that are around the county in different areas, all that we've talked about in the past. Then there'll be a set of ads out on announcing the type of meetings. The first meeting is just going through the process, priorities and goals. The other one is looking at how we set the vision. The second meeting is, and the last one is to wrap it up and come up with the final product. So I'm excited about that. That will be completed by the end of May, is our timeline. And the surveys don't need to be turned in. The final dates will be about the middle of January, so we're going to keep this going for a while. Get everybody's input. Airport, doing well. We've got the berm completed. Did you get a chance to take a look at it?
Look great.
Looks really good. And so is the south end of the runway cleared out, so it's safer, and the total length of the runway can be used now, especially with the bigger aircraft. It's about 98% done. We will be looking toward the spring now to let another contract out to do the ramp and the taxiway. I need to talk to Donna sometime during between now and the end of the day to find out whether we can make a payment on the work that's been done. We've received the money, or we've received the initial money. We need to get the commitment back, or we need to get the check back to make the payment this year or next. And I need to confirm that with Odd 6, but they want to take a tax deduction this year for the donation on that work, or roll it into next year. So I'll figure that out. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, good. Question?
I was going to suggest, since we got so many people, maybe you ought to explain why we took the burn down, how
Oh,
we paid. Just
that's a good point. Yeah, there's been a lot of questions floating around. A lot of this is for safety reasons, and there's an opportunity to get a better. We're going to get Jet A finally into the airport, which will help with the flights of life. They don't once they come up here, they don't have to fly back to the Springs to fuel up and waste time and money searching out people. The berm had to be moved because the wingspan of these airplanes are most, even the light airplanes, are as wide as our runway. But on the bigger airplanes, they overhang the runway by 12 feet. And as you come through that cut there's a downdraft, and it's kind of squirrely winds, and Monty, you can attest to that. The glider people can really attest to that. And of course, you crab into the wind and then slip as well, and you have the opportunity of the wind to blow you and actually hit the berm on the side of the hill. So it was great that the Dot 6 Ranch has offered to improve that so that they can land safely as well as others. That's why that, goes, what, 22 cubic yard, or 22,000 cubic yards of dirt that we moved out there. And I have to congratulate the Seifert who did win the project. Did it in less than 3 weeks, and they had 2 feet of frost in the south end of that runway, of that berm out there. Pretty good job.
Good. Very good. I happen to have copies copies of that survey for the Economic Development Strategic Plan. If anybody in the audience is interested, I'll shoot those around. Obviously, they're available electronically, but
Take a copy if you want.
from my old school teaching days, you're welcome to take one. You just can't read it and do it right now, see, because you've got to pay attention to what's going on.
But it only takes about 10
There's
minutes
20
to fill it
questions
out.
on
It's
there,
not,
yeah,
not a
so-
big deal.
And then the dates are also on that cover letter. Charles, thank you for your work with S-Brand and getting us to the point where we're at as well. So we're excited about the number of responses. So we will press on to that. Anything else, gentlemen, under commissioner items? If not, attorney items?
Well, I already told you about the work I'm doing on the sale of the old gravel pit, and that took a lot of my time. Kelly very astutely caught the fact that Colorado revised statutes require that we set a bond each year for the treasurer, or I guess not each year, but when a treasurer is sworn in, and Virginia's going to be sworn in again, and it has to be done by a resolution. Apparently it hasn't been done that way for some time, so I prepared a resolution that's on the agenda for you to go ahead and set the bond. We've actually had the bond each year. Donna has been paying for that regularly for a long time, but we hadn't had a resolution for it.
Good.
And that's all I have.
Okay.
I need a second. I forgot. One of the other things we've been doing, and we've all been involved, is the outage down on Hardscrabble. And we've had several community meetings, and then we've had some workshops with CenturyLink, the PUC, Senator Gardner's office, the Forest Service, the Custer County, CDOT, and the good news after all that is that we are narrowing down on a solution to get phones in to the Hardscrabble with a lot of cooperation by the government agencies I just announced, meaning not only personally commenting, but bringing money to the table. CDOT's got a program, a broadband program, and I didn't really realize how much broadband there is on our highways. And CDOT actually has the authority to work the issues for the governor for all the safety issues associated with the highway, like animal warnings, like weather, like accidents, like monitoring it through the day to keep things up to date. And so they have a prototype system that they're proposing, and I think we're going to be meeting on the 20th. They went off after our last meeting to finalize what potentials there are to bring that system up here and work with them.
It's at 3 o'clock. I inadvertently, I apologize, inadvertently told Charles it was at 2 o'clock, but it's at 3 o'clock.
3 to 5 with dinner afterwards.
Yeah, at the bowling alley.
I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's fine. But that's the good news, and it will also help bring in a potential of bringing better broadband into the valley, and that's one of the things we'll be discussing, the potential for the future of what we can do that to tie it into our project with the towers potentially down the road. So we'll talk about that at some point. So that meeting I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to hearing what it's going to happen because, as you know, I have a commitment. I can't make the meeting on that. I'll catch up as soon as we're done.
Good. All right. Very good. Thank you. Administrative assistant.
I have nothing.
All righty. We'll move on. Public comment. We'll have a period. Anything you want to talk about?
Yep.
Go ahead, sir. State your name, please, for the record.
I want
Would you state your name for the record, sir?
Dallas Anderson.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment on 2 items.
Okay.
Number 1 is this so-called nuisance ordinance that is being looked at too favorably, as far as I'm concerned, by the Commissioner Board. I know how that started. It came about because a county employee did not like what a person's property looked like. That employee's job is not to tell people what to do on their own property. Their job is to enforce the zoning resolution and the Colorado septic laws. As far as this nuisance ordinance, I don't think it could ever be written objective enough, because a nuisance is different in everybody's eyes. You line up 100 people and they'll give you 100 reasons of what they think a nuisance is. Therefore, I'm against this thing wholeheartedly. It's way too subjective. Number two, what's it being called? Attainable Housing Board? That's just another way of saying subsidized housing, or as it's been put, affordable housing. I don't have a lot of information on why this board was put together. I'd like to hear that at some point, the purpose of the board and what their duties are. The way I see it, it's going to invite more people into the county that can't pull their own weight, that can't pay their way. We've got enough of those people already, and I can already prove that people in that category, and I hate to label things, but crime rate has more than doubled in the domestic area in just 2 to 3 years. And I can prove that. All you have to do is read the sheriff's report in the newspaper. So as I'll wait for later to find out just what this board's all about, but I'm against that also. Thank you.
You bet. I would defer to Mr. Vogel, the chairman of the Attainable Housing Board. Can you tell us when the next meeting is? Did you guys have that scheduled? I don't have it on my calendar.
No, we did have our December meeting with the consultants that are doing an assessment of our needs. That will be completed in March, and but we haven't scheduled a January.
Okay.
Well, we did
Yes, you
schedule
do, January 24th.
24th.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monty serves on that board as well. I
2 o'clock.
try to set in on that when I'm here.
We have a concern as it's related. Our primary needs so far that have been identified are, we know we've had issues, really probably started some of our visibility on that with new teachers, but then it's become obvious in the last year or so, like some of our new deputy sheriffs and stuff like that. And in fact, our new director of our clinic, it's a matter of availability and marketability of available houses. So our emphasis is definitely more on working level people rather than those as referred to in the previous discussions.
Okay. So your meeting on the 24th is here in the commissioner's room, and that's open to the public.
2 o'clock, you said?
Yes, sir. 2 o'clock.
Okay. Other public comment? Okay, here, yes.
Are we allowed to talk about anything?
Anything you want to bring
Yeah,
up.
if something's on the agenda, I'll probably ask you to wait, but
Okay, fine.
but let me explain that too, so that you know. We have adopted a policy that if, when we get to new business, if it's an action item, I will ask for public comment before we vote on that. Obviously, doesn't do much good to ask for public comment after the commissioners have already voted. So, if I fail to do that, I'm sure my fellow commissioners will remind me, but you're certainly welcome to also say.
Thank you. I'll wait.
So, yeah, that was the idea with the whole unfinished or new business, that we'd allow comment on anything that we're going to be voted on. If it's an informational thing, probably not. But if we're going to vote, then public comment would be welcome.
And on that public comment up front issue, if anything else is on your mind, it's the way we find out if there's something that we're not aware of that you want to have us discuss or act on at some future. It's time to bring up something, we'll put it on the note.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that we're clear. Now we're in public comment right now. Then we'll have public comments pertaining to the agenda items. Those public comments will be limited only to that agenda item.
Right.
if you have something else later on, we'll have public comment at the end of the meeting as well. Yes, sir.
Monty Lee, rural Custer County, but I also am on the school board. And I'm not arguing with Mr. Dallas Anderson at all. I just want to make it clear that we have teachers. They're not freeloaders. They're teachers that need housing here. I have two right now that are staying in the unit that we created over by Jerry Court, and they want to buy houses, but the prices they're getting are an average of $300,000. When they only make $30,000, they can't afford something like that. So what we're looking for is how to get these teachers to stay in this community, buy a house, and be permanent residents here, tax-paying residents, so we don't lose them. We are having a very difficult time getting qualified teachers here because they come up to this area and they can't afford to live up here on the salary they're paid. So that's the bias that I have towards trying to find that. And Shannon Byerly told me the same thing. He's having trouble getting deputies up here too because of the cost of housing. That's one of the reasons this Attainable Housing Committee or affordable housing, whatever you want to call it, is formed, is how to get some of the employees of Custer County into houses they can afford. That's what we're working on.
And the comment I'll make on that, that's why we have a new name, not for the old, let's get some cheap housing to get some poor person, and it's attainable housing to get somebody that can make a living. We want them to have their house and make it affordable.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
And again, if you're interested in that, I'm sure they would welcome you to attend any of those meetings. They meet monthly, so it would be a good opportunity to ask those kind of questions at that. Very good. Anything else? Yes, sir. Mr. Bob.
Bob Fulton. And as commissioners, do we have a heavy power with CDOT as far as how come this is the first year since I've been here for a long time that CDOT's not mowed the edge of the highways, both on 69 and 96. And those of us that drive a lot at night, a lot of times we see deer that aren't there because of the weeds being up this high. So, and also being on Frontier Pathways Board, I'm going to approach it in that regard as far as the byway, but that doesn't go 69 north and south. But anyway,
we do have a relationship with CDOT, and we do work with them. I hadn't heard that they weren't mowing.
Why they haven't done that? Not found snow right now, so they can be mowed.
My opinion is no, we do not have authority over that, but we certainly have a relationship. We'll meet with them again on the 20th on an unrelated thing, but I know we could visit with them about that as well. Good point, thank you. I'll make a note of that.
Good point.
Charles has a question.
Okay. At 11 o'clock at night, those weeds seem to look exactly like deer coming up out of the ditch. It bothers me every time. Yes, sir.
As it relates to attainable in our housing assessment, I had a message yesterday from the consultants that are working, and right now we're projecting another survey that'll be available after the first year for input of the population. So we'll be getting the word out on that.
Good.
That survey or that process, what's the timeline on it? It's a quick, this is a quick deal.
It's a fairly quick turnaround. It should be done by the first quarter of 2019.
And they're getting ready to survey employers too, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Any other public comment? Appreciate that. If not, we'll move on. I don't believe we have any staff reports, but if we do, okay, thank you. Any unfinished business, gentlemen, come before the group? If not, we will move on to new business. Again, Chair will allow public comment on action items prior to the board voting. First item of business is the ratification of the reappointment of 3 library board members. Mr. Bahari, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Sean, shake my back.
Yeah, you can't leave out the council. Right. If you do not know, this is Mr. Sean Bahari. He is director of West Custer County Library District. Is that correct?
Correct.
Welcome.
Thank you. So we have 2 board members who need to be reappointed. Let's see, one for me, one for each of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So let's see, J.D. Henrich, the county assessor's on your board, and his term is over, so he would like to renew. He started in 2016 as a replacement midterm for someone, and James Gerhardt also would like to renew his term.
James Gerhardt,
Yeah.
that's new.
Oh,
No,
Or
he
is
says
renewing.
2010.
Renewal. Okay, sorry. Okay. You're asking for ratification, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you've already approved these people for your board?
Yeah.
Okay.
I move we accept his nomination to ratify and renominate, reaffirm these two people, both James Gerhardt and J.D. Hendricks.
Go ahead. Sorry.
A second.
You can second it too.
We moved and seconded to ratify the
Appointment.
appointments of J.D. Henrich, James Gerhardt to the West Custer County Library Board. Discussion, gentlemen?
I appreciate the work you guys do.
Public,
You do a wonderful job.
public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the ratification of James Gerhardt and J.D. Henrich's appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. Done, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate
I
that.
also have our adult winter reading registration forms.
Thank you.
And I want to remind Phil and Jay that Tom has both a book and a movie in the library. So still waiting on you guys.
We'll give you some money for that. Yeah, I continue to wait for an announcement when you come before us to say, guess what? Mr. Prince and Mr. Cantor are now published authors and on file in the library. You have something in the works, finished, correct?
I do, but it's not published.
Soon, I hope.
I don't think so. Well, thank you, sir, appreciate that. All right,
Thank you.
welcome.
Yeah, thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Next item is dealing with transfer of some money. Good morning, how are you? So we need to transfer some interest from CTF money.
We need to transfer 922.84 to County General to Conservation Trust Fund.
I move that we move $922.84 from County General to the Conservation Trust Fund. Recommendation of
We move seconded to approve the transfer of $922.84 from General Fund to Conservation Trust. How's it coming?
How's it come?
Yeah, discussion.
It's required. It's required. We didn't used to do it years ago, and the auditor said, no, you have to give Conservation Trust the interest. So
Okay, so this is an interest amount.
it's it's for interest.
Pay the interest.
We pay Conservation Trust the interest.
Yeah, so it's earned interest to Conservation Trust,
Correct.
CTF. Good. Okay. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Public comment? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Sorry, aye. Opposed, nay? Motion carried. I would never vote against transferring interest money to CTF. Good morning. Thank you. I could, but I will not. I know better than that. All right, next item of business is hiring an interim VSO person. Gentlemen, I believe we have been provided a contract for that. Let me pull mine up.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'll move that we approve a contract between the county and Nexus. Hang on a second, I got the right name.
Consultant.
Nexus Consulting, to allow Mr. Watkins to serve as the interim VSO officer until the county has the opportunity to permanently fill that position.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the contract from Nexus Consulting, AKA Mr. Watkins. Discussion.
I think it's the thing we have to do. We gotta get him in.
Absolutely.
Look at the contract, okay to me. I'm seeing.
Yeah, we
Clint,
met.
look at.
Yeah, I did back when he presented it to Donna.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the contract is valid here. The only thing, and I talked to Roger about that, he was gonna send us an updated contract to delete the letters ECU off of the title, and then to change the date from August 1st to January 1.
Yeah, that's for half-time, basically 20 hours a week.
Right. Currently calls for 20 hours a week. Pay is $25 an hour. With our discussions with him now and previously, I mean, I speak for the two of you, but I think we are all in consensus that he seems to be extremely qualified.
Very qualified.
And we're hoping that he will continue the work that Tim has done. He will help transition a new person in. I want to comment also, this is really for the audience, because I know we were all sitting at the same meeting. Mr. Schwartz was very amenable, even though he may be halfway across the country, to help with any questions that come up with either Mr. Watkins or whoever the county replaces Mr. Watkins with when his contract ends.
Or with current things that are issues going on that he'd started.
Right, and he'll be working with us even though he's not currently an employee, but he's acting as a true professional, stating that I'm willing to help in any way I can to help our veteran population. So I commend him for that, and I look forward to working with Mr. Watkins if this is approved. And I'm sorry we're losing Mr. Schwartz, but I think life goes on and we'll do the best we can.
Good. Yeah, I support the passage of this motion myself. I want to speak to our audience. They've taken time out of their day to come here. I'm assuming this is why you're here, probably not for some other mundane thing. I don't know where, if there's any angst, where that started from. I just am clueless about that. So I was included on the email strings, as I assume both Commissioner Kanda and Prince were. I think it's fair to say that the commissioners have met with Mr. Schwartz several times leading up to this transitional period. I believe we were more than fair with allowing him to call the shots of when he was going to terminate his employment, and we would react accordingly. Certainly it would have been within a business model to request a date from him to terminate his employment so we could move forward with finding a replacement. We chose not to do that. So if you do not think we're in the VSO's corner, you are sadly mistaken, my friends. That is not the truth. I don't know where all that started from. I read Mr. Ballard's email. I'm sure you as well did. I didn't read between the lines, but I think it was pretty clear that he was trying to rally support in the event that we were not going to pursue hiring a full-time VSO officer.
I thought I was in a different meeting reading the comments. Was the same meeting I was
obviously, whoever wrote any of that was not in the meetings that the commissioners were in. Very frustrating for us because I'm not putting a gag order on anybody, but it'd be nice if you're going to interject things that maybe you might even attend the meetings and know what's exactly going on. We were never against hiring a VSO. This is a part-time position because it's an interim thing, and the first thing we're going to do with Mr. Watkins is pursue hiring another VSO officer. I believe I speak for us. If that's if I'm incorrect.
And just so everybody knows, we don't talk to each other outside these meetings to make decisions. We can talk to you all, and if you got an issue, call us. Ask us what happened in the meetings we've been in, for sure. But this is a big deal. Tim has built up quite a business up here, and as a matter of fact, does a lot of work with guys out of the other counties surrounding us because they're not taking care of their vets. We are.
Further discussion, gentlemen. Comments from the public? Yes, sir.
The question I've got is the person that you hire, how many hours is he going to be available? What are you looking to hire, a full-time position?
Yes. Subsequent to this interim position you're talking about. Yes, that is the plan.
That's right. Part-time's only going to be for X months, whatever that takes.
Well, can I also say, if I may, the reason Mr. Watkins is part-time is because that's all he would let us hire him for.
Well, I understand
We
that.
asked him to
Yeah.
stay full-time. In fact, we asked him to go ahead and apply for the full-time job. He wasn't interested. He asked us if he could only do the job interim, part-time. We have every intention, and we will hire a full-time person.
Oh, okay. That was my question, if after the interim, the person that
Right.
you hire is gonna be
And I wish-
full-time.
And I wish Mr. Watkins would be full-time in the interim. Unfortunately, he chose not to be.
Okay.
You all have fingers out in the community. You've got contacts. If you know anybody
Please.
that we don't know of, or do you think we could twist an arm? Give us the name.
Yeah, and another response to your question, sir, we budgeted for a full-time position for VSO for 2019.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we're probably not going to control everything about the hiring process, but our intent would be to hire a full-time VSO as soon as. Yes, sir.
James Phelps. I'm with both the VFW and the American Legion, and I'm the Colorado State Veterans Trust Fund Administrator here. And I want to make sure that we are going to be concurrently, not after the intern position, but concurrent with the intern position, you will be posting that job for a full-time VSO and actively pursuing hiring a qualified person to take that job. I know more about the needs of veterans in the county than anybody except Tim. And he knows more than I do because he's got more interaction with them. But I'm the guy who's literally managing the money to assist these people. And a lot of them, unfortunately, can't afford even the affordable housing. But we've got a real need here. And we got a real need to have a full-time individual sitting in that chair as soon as we can possibly bring that about. And they have to be a dedicated, hard-working, committed individual to veterans advocacy, not just another employee. Okay?
Actually, we've been actively pursuing somebody ever since Tim said he was going to leave. And so this is, when we say interim, all that means is there is no timeline on the interim. It means if we got a replacement next week, Roger's done.
In fact, the contract itself does not have an ending date.
That's right.
It says until we have a replacement. And based on what you said, if you'd like to apply for the job, I'd like to see your application.
Yeah. Sounds like you've already been trained.
Sorry, but you don't pay the position enough to hire a full-time college professor, okay? Just uncover it.
Well, let me respond real quick. A couple things. One, rest assured, sir, that is exactly our intention. If you have heard anything other than that, you've been misled.
I haven't heard anything other than that.
Okay.
I just want to ensure that that's the plan.
Now, the other thing I think that you have to have confidence in these commissioners that if we do not find the kind of person you're talking about, we won't hire it. We're going to find the right person. So when January, February comes around, you start squalling, we haven't hired anybody, it might be because we have not found anybody exactly who you just described.
I'm going to take the first living, breathing body.
And that was an agreement with Mr. Schwartz, that we weren't just going to put another warm body in that chair.
And as Commissioner Candace said, you folks have your hands in the middle of this. Please help us hire the right person. If you have someone who you think would make a great candidate, please bring them forward. That will help us immensely.
And we'll put him in some attainment.
Yes, sir.
Oh, gotta announce yourself, Randy.
I'm the commander of the VFW here. I've been the commander for 9 years.
Name, sir?
And I'm on the advisory board for
Randy,
the trust fund.
Randy.
What's your name?
Tell him your name.
Randy Knight. I told Randolph Leroy Knight.
It hasn't changed since
Got a social security number,
Yeah, right.
serial number.
But I'm a Vietnam vet, disabled by the way, 100%, from Agent Orange. Most people don't realize how many vets are in this county. Probably a third to a fourth of the population here are vets. You never hear about most of them. When Tim took over the job, there were 62 vets registered with the VSO's office. He's got almost 500 now. He is going to be a very tough act to follow because he's nationally certified. And he's went above board to help vets. I know some vets, the previous VSOs told them they weren't eligible for benefits because they made too much money. That's a bunch of bull. Any honorably discharged vet qualifies for care. And last year, the year before, we helped 119 vets through the Veterans Trust Fund. If none of you are familiar with that, that is a fund set up with a settlement from the major tobacco companies with the government. Every year, they pay so much money. Last year, Colorado only got like 75 million. This year, we got 105 million. Well, we only got 40,000. We took over the trust fund from the American Legion. We only have around 50 members. And you have to be a veteran of a foreign war, not just an actively discharged vet. But vets represent a large part of this county. And it's critical that we get somebody to just start right in where Tim left off. Because even with 500 people, it's more than a full-time job. Tim worked 36 hours a week in the office, but then he worked countless hours beyond that because you have to do all this research and stuff. And it's vital to a lot of these vets. He pointed a vet out to me the other day, he was only 45. He died of a massive heart attack. And he hadn't even told his wife about it. He went to Tim and they filed a claim and they got it approved and everything. I think he was already on partial disability. Well, Tim called up his wife to let her know about what was going on. She says, "Who are you? What do you want?" And he told her. Well, now she's going to get survivor benefits. And this is so important because, well, we issue food coupons. We issue money for firewood, for propane, for travel, you know. And we just raised the limit from tentatively $300 per person up to $500. We got $55,000 this year. And I'm on the committee. Bert Daniels and I and George Knox from Kenyon are on the supervisory committee in case James has any problem. And it is just so important. And a lot of these vets really count on this money, you know. There's guys come out of the woodwork, and there's still a lot of them that we've never contacted. And, you know, I'm not interested in going up in the VFW or anything. I'm interested in what happens in Custer County. And, you know, we want to help the vets here. And it's just critical because Tim's got a lot of things that are in the works now that are going to have to be carried on. And I just, you know, it's just so darned important. And Tim was almost overqualified. Like I say, he's going to be such a tough act to follow, you know. And the one thing that I did get aggravated about, he was one of the lowest paid county employees until the state gave him a $500 or $600 raise last year. Now that's a bunch of bunk. When guys down in the road and bridge are making over $5,000 a month. An operator down there starts out at $16 and something an hour. Tim isn't making that kind of money. And look at the job he's doing, helping countless people. And I want to applaud you guys for making clarifications about this stuff, you know, because I was in a meeting with Tim and James last Wednesday after he had met with you guys and with Roger. It says this Roger is a super pick. And but you know, we would like to have some input whenever you guys do select somebody. You know, me as the commander of the VFW, and John as the commander of the American Legion.
It's a great
Mr.
idea.
Carroll.
Okay.
And if you need any help, just ask. You know, I'm a retiree now. And I get so damn bored not doing anything. You know? So,
I think we know a job for you.
Anyway, I'm too easy, supposedly. But
All right,
anyway, thank you.
You bet, appreciate it.
I've got another comment out there.
I would ask that maybe as commissioners we have a discussion when it's appropriate about including some people on the search committee.
I agree.
Go ahead, sir.
Makes perfectly good sense.
We got another comment.
Yes.
When are you planning on advertising that position?
As soon as we get Mr. Roger on board and sit down with him.
So probably first
of the
in
year, yes,
January.
ma'am. Yeah, he starts January 2nd.
Okay.
So, we had already had a discussion with him. When he comes on board, then we're gonna meet, obviously get him up and running, which we don't have anything to do with that. He'll take care of that. But, we will get involved, as soon as we can and start a search for a new VSO officer. Yes, sir, in the back.
What are his days gonna be?
Pardon
me? His days.
Full-time.
No,
Or are you talking about Roger?
Yeah.
He, I thought said
2
he
days a
wanted
week.
2
Tuesday
days,
and Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday and Wednesday of
That's
every
his-
week?
That was his
Every week.
preference,
Thank you.
yes. Yeah, sorry.
10-hour
John?
days, he said.
Go ahead.
I'm John Carroll, the commander of the American Legion. We are not trying to, bully the commissioners or do anything like that. We just want to make sure, because I think all the veterans in this room have dealt with a VSO that just sucks at their job.
Absolutely.
And we are so afraid of that, that is basically why we're here. It is good to hear that, we're gonna have, someone who is good at their job in the interim, but I think our main concern, speaking, on behalf of the American Legion, our main concern is we do not want someone in that position that's just basically doing lip service. We want to make sure that, our veterans in this community are taken care of because, like Randy said, we are in everything in this community. And, I know the VFW and the American Legion, we are actively searching to find a candidate to help you guys out.
Well,
So
certainly, I think your comments, all of your comments are clearly heard and understood by the commissioners. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think we agree that in the search process, interview process, that we will have members of the armed forces with us in that to help guide us, because Bill is a vet, so he knows, but I'd like to hear from people within the community saying, this person's more qualified than this one, and we like them. So, yes, this will not be a closed door behind the back type of thing, and you're stuck with someone who's just a paper shuffler.
I would ask.
I hear that loud and clear. You don't want that.
I'd ask the two of you to get together and get a couple people to present it to us. Tell us who's on the board that will set up.
Well, I think the commissioners will reach out, particularly to you two gentlemen, and see if you have somebody. Obviously, we'll have to discuss this. We have not. But if we make a decision to include someone else on that search committee, we'll reach out and hopefully fill a couple seats and you'll have some input. I don't know other than that. Let me go ahead for somebody else who hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet. Yes, sir.
Can I sit down?
You may
I'm Larry
sit.
Weber.
Crippled as you are, you sit.
I've been around and with the Legion and all of that. I'm currently captain of search and rescue, but I came into this, I've been 50 years out. I was Vietnam. Up until 3 years ago, I just said, I live with what I got. I've gone on and done other things and that. And Tim got a hold of my records and started in on my butt, and he wouldn't quit chewing. It took 3 years, but I had gone 48 years without getting anything. And he said, that's wrong. And he kept it up, and he kept it up, and he kept on me, and, well, a few months ago, he was I was one of the 5 he wanted to cancel out before he left. He wanted to make sure it was done, and he got it done. And to find a person with that kind of stuff, because, I helped him, and I came in and talked to him, and when he started, he didn't have all those criteria, but he was driven. He was driven to get that criteria to where he could sit down on that computer and take my 1,000 pages of crap and sort through it and get it down to where what we needed. And he made it happen. And that's what we got to find. It doesn't have to be somebody that's got the total training, but they got to have the dedication. That's the whole thing. The dedication he put into it. Every time he'd see me, he'd raise Kate. He says, here you are, you're 100% disabled, but you won't quit. And he said, that's the kind of people that need to get this stuff, the ones that won't quit. And he was the same way. Even with all of his disabilities, he wouldn't quit until, it finally forced him out. But at the same time, I can't think of another person in 48 years that did the job that he did. So, yeah, it's going to be tough to replace him, but I think, like they say, some of the disabled, some of the veterans, some of the people in the community need to be involved, because I don't want to see it go back to where it was 5 years ago, where it was kind of, oh, well, we'll get to it. Here's a piece of paper, fill it out. That's the way it was. I went through it. I did it not just in this town, but other towns. They tell me, oh, you need to fill out this paper. They hand me paper at a garage sale. Okay, fill it out. Nothing would ever come of it. So you got tired of it. So what I'm saying is, I think you got a good track if you can get a few of these people involved that have worked with somebody like him in the different organizations, the trust funds, the American Legion, the VFW, and all of that. And it'll go a lot further for the community.
Well, take heart and understand the commissioners are going to offer this contract most likely to Mr. Watkins based on one person's recommendation.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there thinking we have not been listening to your BSO officer, again, you're mistaken. Yes, sir.
Charles Vogel, rural Custer County.
Thank you.
I've been part of this thing since we basically came to your predecessors and said, we aren't happy with the county administrator that was the VSO at that time, and we wanted to help your counterparts at that time to find a qualified person. Watching this over, gosh, probably 12 to 14 years, I would support the comments. Tim's been the best that we've had. He's worked it, and it's set the goal high. Something that a lot of you don't know is, I think your budget is something on the order of $22,000 for your support of it. $3.5 million comes into this county from just VA benefits alone. That doesn't include those of us that get DOD retirements and such like that. So it's a significant item for the maintenance of our county. And in fact, if we didn't have the state funds and the office and getting the VA funds, it would really put quite a burden, has a potential of putting quite a burden on our other departments that support the population of Custer County. So with what you say, I said we'd like to remind you that when we started this process, that it was an agreement that between the veterans and the county commissioners, we would jointly work to get to fill the position, and I think obviously it's certainly a benefit and awareness on the veteran side of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I got to echo one thing now. There are hidden things that you don't see. Infrastructure that we support. He's got an office over there. We have listened to him, need more space, needed privacy, needed XY heat, whatever. And that is a significant amount of things that we're going to improve on. And as you see the development of a new justice center and a new government center as we grow a little bit, that is number one. We are going to continue supporting that explosion of need that we have here to continue to develop that capability to support a VSO. It's more than just salary. It's more than just one guy.
We'll be watching you.
Oh, yeah.
If you think you're the only ones, I'm teasing you. Conversation we had that I had, I brought up to Tim last week when we met, and I want to mention it to you folks that are here today. The 2020 census can be very critical and important to this county. Reach out to the veterans that you know, make darn sure they fill their census out. I've been kind of a stickler about empirical data. It's easy for all of us to sit around and start spouting numbers. And until we can get concrete numbers of exactly how many vets live in this county, we're selling ourselves short. And so Tim has done an excellent job, obviously, of documenting the number of vets that he's provided help for services. But it's easy for us on any front, for me in the agricultural area or whatever, to start saying numbers. But we have to have empirical data. And that census is where I think we're going to get that. So we have got to get our vets to fill those out and send those back in. So I think it'll make a big difference. All right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like we got unanimous support for this initiative, and I want to thank you guys for that. God bless you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you. With that, I wouldn't ask your name since you're...
That was Bob Hollins.
Well, thank you. Anything else, folks? Public comment on this?
I just wanted to make, I didn't put it in a while ago. Our post 12063, the VFW, is the only one in District 2 of the VFW, the southern part of the state, that has the Veterans Trust Fund. Of course, I have to go to meetings a couple of times a year because I'm the commander, a district meeting. And I've tried to interest other posts. And there's only 2 that have showed any interest, and then they've never got a hold of me or anything. So that's something to be said for Custer County. And thanks to the American Legion for initiating that. But we do it in dead earnest. So thank you very much for what you guys are doing.
Thank you for being here.
Further discussion from commissioners? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. I do want to say, and Counselor, I may defer to you here, Roger was going to send us an updated contract. I wonder if we should wait, or can we vote on this contract and amend the date and the title?
I think we can do that, and I do want to see it to make sure it's what I saw before, so.
Right.
On the condition that it's the same document that I reviewed, we could do it that way.
So can I amend my motion?
Yes, sir, you may.
Okay, I'd like to amend the motion that I made, that we approve the contract between Nexus Consulting and the county for an interim VSO officer pending modification of the date. What was the other thing?
Deleting the
and delete, right.
ECU out of the title for services.
And deleting the ECU out of the title.
Sir, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to amend the main motion by including pending the date and title change. Is that adequate, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment. The document we have in front of us says a contract for ECU Services. This was from Nexus Consulting. He intended to delete ECU out of that title. He failed to do that. We asked him about it. He said he would. And then again, I think I mentioned that the document is dated August 1. We will change that probably because we did tell Roger as well that if he needed to work between now and January 1, we would pay him for that. We did not expect him to do that for free, including the trip up here last week to do a transition meeting with Tim and be here for the open house. So we told him we would pay him for those hours as well. So I think the date probably would be when we approve this contract, which would be a day pending the outcome of the amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the amendment, which states pending the date and title change, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll proceed to vote on the main motion now, which states approving the Nexus consulting contract with the pending date and title change. Further discussion? Further public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have approved that contract. Ms. Brenda?
Yes.
Would you reach back out to, sorry, I hate to talk at you without seeing you, but would you reach out to Mr. Watkins and we'll follow up on getting an updated contract?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, without objection, the chair would move to take about a 5-minute recess. We stand in recess.
This is where we'll That's the picture where we
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for being here.
Raised it to 50K. No way I don't have a heart attack. The number of hours I put in already just as a volunteer for the trust fund is more than half time. But I'd be happy to help out. So that you can track me down. What are you doing?
I mean, Nate,
That's got magic. That's a magic card. You gotta do the lemon juice trick. Okay. Sorry about that.
tumors places.
Anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Same way. Okay.
Until she goes home.
Probably this one can't come in.
We do have some that gets cut, maybe smaller, occasionally will,
I didn't, I was down.
maybe somebody would not want out of business.
I got literally extended, so I got a single day in a month. And I waited 3 weeks for the surgery to get it. And it becomes a real pain in the posterior, you know.
My house gets closer, I'm thinking when I have a freezer.
It's only 21 years. I'd have loved to have done 30 years, but that many years of submarines, I just I couldn't do it anymore. I was, that why didn't I live this far from the ocean? It was just high, I could get from the ocean and still survive.
Is there other ways that any of us
American Legion is basically most 170 feedback. They now have one person. Because Alan left, Ken goes, Alan goes. Nobody else, there's one person left to run everything. And the ladies come for assistance, so they walk out for 10 days of assistance with the family. So I have to follow up food for their homes because they're that. We do, it's actually pretty good. No, there's a separate feedback there. I've even had offers of hundreds of
That'd be great. Makes it
see, that becomes a problem with that. If I can just get 2 big breads, I feel it meat because we're that desperate. People are that desperate. Planning that person. One day, but the Legion
dark hole.
That's something that
Fortunately, we have it. It's better
because I'm subject to all these
well, they
I've got bonds out to the last of the bonds. So yeah, if you want,
the new people.
But it's still, it's a pretty good
It's you can't even drive in there and see the.
Parked out on the alley, you know, so, and I'm not sure what the line is, but anyway,
But yeah, when I say, you know, I'm running it,
parked sold for 18 years.
I didn't know, I knew that that needs, but until I took this over in August, I didn't know
It was there.
we had needs. It really is sad, the situation. You're willing to survive.
Everybody knows what.
Hey, you can take my seat. I'm gonna walk away. You can have my seat. My time is.
I said that I would I was trying to talk about the
Thanks, Jack.
Because they want a survey. They want some survey. So we may have
Right where you want.
Is there a deadline for it?
yeah, later on too.
Later today. You're not doing anything right now, are you? A little longer than that, well, I guess, I don't know.
Can you email me a copy I'll send of the form that they need to sign? It's an affidavit. I'll even send it to you and you can do that.
Clint wants me to email you an affidavit that they want Tom to sign. Correct, yeah.
It sounds like you're doing a survey.
The title commitment is the one that the one that you just sent me. I should send that to her.
But they need to see the affidavit. He needs to see the affidavit. Exactly.
Okay, well, I will email that stuff to you. Okay. And then anything else?
Seems like,
You want to talk to him?
No, I thought he'd be there. He's got a
Yep, that's it.
What's my time on both? I'm trying to figure out somebody else.
It's actually one tap and gallon after everybody sit down, but that doesn't usually work. How are you this morning, sir? You hide behind the door. I'm gonna cut a window in there so I can see you next time.
You can see us, Tom. We got the light, we've even lights.
You're shining lights.
There's another one, we see this.
Chair will call the meeting back to order. Apologize for an extended 5 minutes. 5 minutes seems to go awful quick. I don't know why that is, but we try. Next item of business is a discussion about the broadband with Economic Development Company. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We appreciate that. You're welcome to come forward. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, Dale.
Dale?
Yeah.
Yes, the most immediate thing is two things. We did complete the informal submittals to the EDA in support of the EDA matching grant for $1 million. That was finally submitted Sunday. The real question now is, what does our federal government do as far as shutdown at the end of the week? In talking to Trent, our contact with EDA, he was apologetic here a week or so ago. He said, you know, if the government comes down, I'm forbidden to do anything in support of it. But that's, you know, that's beyond all of our pay grades.
Excuse me, Chairman, this is a copy of.
Okay, now when you say you informally submitted that, could you expound on that a little bit?
There's a formal grant submittal, and then there's informal stuff before that. And basically it's a to and fro. They identify needs, and we satisfy it until Trent, the contact, is satisfied that it's ready, it's a full package, it's accurate and vetted and all, as far as he's concerned, before he submits it to the decision process, which is in Denver. It's a state level approval. And to their benefit, to our benefit, it's not like DOLA or some of the other funding agencies that we're used to dealing with, where they have a set schedule and you've got to wait till that schedule. If the package is ready, deemed to be ready and provided to the decision group, then we're encouraged that they can meet within a week. They generally meet twice a month, but the opportunity of getting a decision on pretty short notice is encouraging from that.
Okay, you might want to mention, Charles, since there's a lot of people here that care about broadband, and we do, why it's taken so long. I know that you started the process in June with the EDA, and it's been delayed through several things. You tried an informal submittal earlier, and then you had a problem with Trent, medically, I guess, extended leave of absence. And go ahead and pick it up.
Well, actually, we had two delays that we couldn't control. Initially, we were working with the Southern Colorado Economic Development District in Pueblo. We'd started that dialogue with them and EDA, using the SCED as a facilitator. SCED lost they fired their administrator, and thank goodness the president there, very capable woman, helped us, but there was a burble in the process at that stage of the game that created a delay. Then with that absence, we started working directly with EDA more and more, and with a little help from the president of SCED. And then we tried to get a hold of Trent, what's Trent's last name? Thompson, yeah. We tried to get a hold of Trent, and basically he didn't answer the phone. And in fact, the DOLA reps had tried to get a hold of him, and finally sent an email to him, and the response was, "I'm out of the office." And so without an explanation or an announcement, It took a indeterminate period before we got laid off to a second EDA vote. And we had a couple of sessions with him, got some feedback, and we were working on that. And then the last time we talked to him, it was, well, I understand that Trent's coming back. And then in about a week or so, Trent shows up and he explains that, and was apologetic, and that a number of years ago he had been diagnosed as having some liver disease, and he had gone in to have his annual physical, and they found that things had really accelerated, had been rather dormant, and that he was going to have a liver transplant. And so they put him on the waiting list, and you know, what little of us know about transplant deals, but he was very lucky and was able to get a liver within a day or so. And so he's been out on recoup until just a couple of weeks ago. So he's back. Other than the span of the calendar, mentally he was up to speed on it and such like that. And so we were back in it, but like was mentioned, we've had, we find ourselves, you know, nothing is easy, and this has certainly proven it. He's been very positive as far as his expectations, and as far as our satisfying the requirements, data-wise. But then, like you said, I don't make the decisions. It's up to this board.
So your letter to us, you stated that on the 4th, this is just for everybody's benefit, that just could capsulize what you just said. On the 4th of December, Trent was reinstated.
Yes.
And then you all had put a deadline of the 17th, which is today,
which we
to submit the informal package.
The final informal package.
Right. Yeah.
Meeting all of his
right. And you think you've done that already, and
we have
it's been in there. And then we've got the holiday coming up and a potential government shutdown due to budget stuff. So, and we don't really, do we know what his timeline is once he's got it, if he's in the office and is working?
Well, actually, he's on leave right now, in spite of the fact that he was on medical department leave for some period of time. He had leave that was use or burn, use or lose. He is on leave, but he indicated he would keep his email up and would respond to what we've submitted. But no, we do not know the schedule. There is another thing we've talked to Christie, is our anniversary of the grant that they gave us is in March, and the idea was if we didn't think we were going to get a decision, a favorable decision out of EDA, we should look at an extension. With the encouragement that we've had from EDA, we have not sought, or don't think that's justified yet. And plus, you know, if we found out within the next month or so that EDA was not the source of our matching funds, we still think it would be a stress, but it would still be an opportunity to extend the period of obtaining matching funds with DOLA.
It's not that we think, we've been told by Trent in a meeting we had with him last week that between now and the 1st of April of 19 is adequate time for this approval, assuming that we perform and they perform.
Yeah, personally, I think we probably ought to look at an extension with DOLA. I hate to wait until March or April to do that, but I don't see a downside in us looking for an extension from them. Do you guys?
No.
I'm not saying right now, but within the next 30 or 45 days.
If we find those discussions have already started, and Charles just gave you the feedback that we've had
from EDA,
from DOLA, that they encouraged us to proceed on with EDA and complete this, but they did not say that an extension was impossible. But as
who was that in DOLA?
That was Christie and Greg.
Greg Winkler.
Greg Winkler.
Okay.
So
But, you know, anytime you go beyond an arbitrary date, it can always be extended, but never without some pain.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that from my conversations with people at DOLA, it would be very painful to get an extension, but I just am concerned that if we wait, it may be more painful
I think
to
with
the
the
end
change
of
of
April.
administrations
March, April.
and the political appointees, it's certainly not going to make it any easier.
Let me make one other, you know, Charles's timeline. This was not all a function of people and illness, etc. If you recall, back in early June, late May, part of the EDA review was that the feds don't award money to counties except for economic benefit. There had to be N number of jobs created by their investment in Custer County if they were going to award $1 million to match DOLA. And that took 3 months to get this study that was done by Strategic Networks Group, a copy of which you've all had for months. So we lost 3 months in there while we did this study, which was an excellent study, came up, showed the number of jobs that this investment will result in Custer County.
That study from SNG, was that the most recent submittal, or
No.
was there other stuff?
There's other things.
Oh, okay.
We haven't seen anything other than SNG.
Here's the whole book of everything that has gone in to the feds. It tells who we are, shows all of the tower locations that are proposed, drills down on them and shows what we're going to, you know, exactly where it's at, what's going to be installed at the location, all of the things that Trent had said to us, that you can either do that now or we do it later. He said we find out that we can expeditiously approve money if we do this, we do it now rather than do it later. So we feel confident that we've invested a huge number of hours to meet some excellent input from them. You know, they just haven't been wasted conversations. These guys do a lot of work and they critique us, and then we respond and put it back in. The medical issue that Trent had with her liver replacement was kind of out of the blue, but he's back and he's fully engaged.
Do you have a copy of that? Sorry, sir. Didn't mean to step over you.
Same question you were.
Are you saying that the three commissioners would like to have a copy of this submittal?
Yes. I think that's where we were headed, yes.
I'd like to review it just to see.
If you can speak clearly, I can deliver.
In part and parcel, we've seen some of it.
Right.
But the commissioners have never seen any formal document that was.
If you have it digitally.
If the answer to my question was yes, I will see here by the end of the week, the three of you get a copy of what is currently at EDA.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The economic study basically prevented us from having any year-end decisions.
Right.
And then with confusion of who we talked to, that worked. There was another thing that Dale didn't mention, how they advised us, and I'll let you explain on the way we would propose to have the contract deal. It required us to re-wicker our cost estimates to satisfy their criteria.
And I think I've mentioned that to three of you, but we had originally, we were going to go with a design build contract so that we would competitively go out to three organizations, get 3 bids for a contractor, GC, to take ownership of the project, find the necessary subs, and do the whole project and give us a turnkey result. The feds came back and said, now this was okay with the state to do a design build, but the feds came back and said that their experience with design build contract is it's rampant with fraud across the country, and that they require a design bid build, which requires that we go out and we find a design firm that'll do the detailed design, sign the contracts with the landowners, etc. And then we'll go out to bid and find a construction firm that will actually do their grade, do the fencing, procure the tower components, and do the construction and turn it over to us. So we have to do a design bid build. We've all done both. It's just, they made us change horses.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can I change the direction just slightly, please? First of all, I really appreciate you getting that in. I look forward to it being approved. I assume them working with you as closely as they are, that it's a very positive sign. I want to change the subject slightly. Commissioner Canada brought up that with the fiber coming up and the broadband that CDOT has, suggesting that it'll have a significant impact on the 6 tower project. And I admit I'm a neophyte and I really don't understand this very well, but what would the impact be between what, and maybe Mr. Commissioner Canada can explain it better, but my understanding is that there may be some variations of what you've proposed because of the fiber coming up Harts Gravel.
Well, I could
Or
answer.
am I missing something
I'll answer
completely?
the question that, if, you know, you've seen our 5-step approach that came out of the original strategic plan.
Right.
The tower infrastructure project, its mission is to provide an infrastructure that will allow up to 40% more addresses in Custer County to get service at the broadband internet level, 25 down, 3 up at a minimum. The project, as I understand it, which is bringing fiber up Highway 96 from Wetmore on into Silver Cliff, if that should ever happen, which its primary mission is to support the 40 or so phones that were washed out during the flooding down there in the burn area. From my professional opinion, has zero relationship, because bringing fiber up the highway into the central office here in West Cliff by Silver has no benefit to distributing broadband to residents within Custer County.
So I can wrap my hands around it. The 6 towers, the purpose of that is to get broadband accessibility outside the county into some of the more rural areas of Custer County, whereas the fibers coming up is really for CDOT use, as you mentioned, for weather and for traffic and that kind of thing. And they have,
And long term, it will provide additional internet capacity to this area. You will notice that we have another project downstream in the 2023 period,
right,
which calls for what we call the Tri-County Fiber-Optic Middle Mile Project.
right.
That mission could be negated by the project if it brought fiber up to 96. It has nothing to do with increasing the number of homes that would be covered, but it could give the county the additional bandwidth that we're going to need.
Got it. So they're really kind of bifurcated. They're really kind of separate projects. Is that what I'm hearing?
From my point of view, they're totally separate.
Got it.
Okay, time for me to talk, because that is your point of view, without a lot of information that we three have had the honor and privilege to participate in on fixing the issue we have with the 40 phones. It has nothing to do with the broadband towers. That is correct. However, in working that problem with the agencies I brought up earlier, the U.S. Forest Service with rights-of-ways, the PUC because they wanted to delay getting subsidized help to keep those guys with phones, with the DOLA, with DOT, and who else was it? Custer County. There is a potential, and then the way the solution is going, that a fiber link, a mini bundles, big fiber coming up, not just for the 40 phones. It has nothing to do with that. Nor is it just the ability to get CDOT their safety observation capabilities. It is also that whole Century was in these meetings. So it is turned into I know that part of the infrastructure on these towers, what we need is a way in and a way out of it. You got to get the data in and the data out, and you got to have it reliable. So that requires 2 connections, probably. That's one we're going to do it wirelessly at first. And then you all are gonna go, like you said, find another link and get another grant, get somebody to drag something up out of the Highway 50 or out of Walsenburg or however. So the issue became, maybe here's an opportunity to take a look at what we got. So before we even started on this, is after we had our first meetings. And by the way, I wanna also point out for the public's benefit here, we all support broadband, and we also want to make it clear that we're not going to go broke doing it, and we want to do it the most efficient, cost-effective way we can from a county point of view. That includes the business plan you all are working on with EDA to convince them there is economic opportunities and there's a capability for us to get rent off our towers to pay for the maintenance of the roads in there and the rights-of-ways, etc. So, as a result, I want to make sure everybody understands we are a team here. We work together. We don't always agree on everything, but we are a team. And in no way do we do things without the other people on the board understanding, knowing, and voting for things. So I was disappointed the other day when I actually reached out to Charles to say, what do you think? Because we had discussed this may impact, potentially put a leg up on our capability to guarantee a better system, even with 6 towers, 1 tower, 2 towers, I don't know. If it happens, and the reason I say 1 tower, 2 towers, Dale, is because the infrastructure is not just bringing a cable in here. CenturyLink's eyes lit up when CDOT pointed out that if we can do that, and by the way, guarantee the county some cables ourselves. We want to be able to support our needs with broadband on fiber once it's in town. CenturyLink looked at the business case and said, we can put fiber in the bottom of this valley and bring it out to these pointed present pops that are in the valley. They're easy to drag a fiber into, connect it into the copper and do the last quarter mile on the copper lines that exist and still get better than 25 gigs or megabits, bytes down and 3 up out there and reach into the places they can't drag fiber. And so, but that still doesn't eliminate the need for a tower. But it might change the location of some of them because now you're getting feeds out a little bit different than maybe we would have projected before. So from a taxpayer's point of view and us managing efficiently and responsibly, what are some options? So at our discussion at one of the meetings, I actually contacted, and I brought it up in that meeting right after that, Herb Halter, the director of DOLA, to ask him how complicated it is getting an extension. And he says, as long as it's broadband related, it's not hard to do, and we do it all the time. And he said, let's see what that means. I worked with Christy Dola, or Christy Doon, after that. And as a result, 2 things that have happened. One is what we've just discussed. The fact is, we've gotten pushed up against a wall, not a wall really, with this kabuki dance with EDA for various reasons, good reasons. You had to build a study. You had to also weather through the bureaucratic handoffs that never happened. And now you got a guy that just came back off sick leave jumping through hoops. And I asked Charles what his recommendation was, and he said, probably I'll let it go through. And that was good with me. I don't, if that's all right, get him online. And then if we have to switch horses later and we'll get an extension, they can deal with it. By the way, it was brought up in our meetings down in Wetmore the last time, that there's other matching funds. Because CDOT is ponying up the right-of-way and the broadband. They own the broadband. They are bringing up Greg Winkler at this next meeting. Will be there because he's the broadband DOLA guy, and his CDOT expert Bob Pfeiffer, who controls all the CDOT's broadband initiatives for the governor of the state. And so between them and CenturyLink, they cut an initial deal on the last meeting we were at. We'll go look at it and let's see what we can do potentially and bring in the funds from the forest, bring in the CDOT matching labor and capabilities, By the way, they will put those monitors on Highway 96 with a temporary system. It's called an E-band system, microwave. They're going to put a couple towers on the Forest Service peaks in order to reach back and forth up to where McKenzie Corner is and put a junction in there. And, oh, by the way, rescue the 40 guys. It's not, let's go rescue the 40 guys and let's go see what we can do with broadband. It's, they are more interested in exercising their prototype system and proving that it's effective for other reasons. So we are lucky to be the county that they're going to prototype it with now because of this need. And it also intrigued CenturyLink enough to have them spend their own money to plant the cable up the highway. That's their intent. And their payback on that is the business case to bring the fibers into this valley, connect the link they already have coming up Oak Creek to bring fiber into Westcliff now, and then make it so that we can get a reliable system up and build a more robust infrastructure within the valley at CenturyLink's cost. And that's why I think if we're a team here, it behooves you guys and us to pay attention to that and see if there's some other things we can leverage. Because if EDA doesn't perform, where's our matching fund? They could turn this down. Right now, the addresses that builds the business case are in a small part of the county. The other 40% of addresses don't have people buying anything out there. So what's the return? And I know you build a case, and it's probably a good one, but we haven't seen it. And that gets me to the third point.
Excuse me,
No,
you said you haven't seen the study?
No, I didn't mean that. I meant I haven't looked at the latest submittal. You just offered us to take a look at your submittal. That's all I want to see. It's what
it's supporting documentation.
I'm not here to I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to
clarify.
I'm not here to argue about it. So there's two reasons I see good reasons that we will consider and vote on, because that's what we do, to decide whether we're going to go after an extension, and that may be after the meeting on the 20th. But we have a rough draft of a letter that I've worked with Christie in order to extend this grant time so that we have some relief from DOLA point of view and time to work. If EDA comes along and we manipulate that and we get the $1 million grant, they're fine. If it's not, I think we already have a matching. We'll learn more about it on the 20th of ability to leverage the in-kind support in order to get the fiber into Westcliff from the CenturyLink point of view. And the third thing is, I'm concerned how we work with you guys, and I don't understand the relationship. When I reach out and you guys fire a letter off to my two comrades up here, my teammates, and accuse me of, and Jay wrote this. No, I'm glad Jay wrote it.
I did not accuse you. I asked
it says
the two commissioners.
I don't want to. I'm not arguing. No,
one at a time, gentlemen.
The point was, Jay sent out a note and he made a point to you guys, was I'm concerned that one commissioner unilaterally, without authorization, by a vote of other commissioners, has determined that an ongoing project previously voted on should be abandoned. And Jay was 100% right, and that is a significant accusation of our integrity together. I trust these guys not to be ordering things around, and we work that. Now, that doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. And so what you did was try to leverage or try to triangulate. You didn't include me on the note. You sent it to these guys and expected them to do what? So, yeah, luckily, Jay sent it. So my point is, you guys work for the county, and unfortunately, we don't have a contract with you guys. What is our contract with you guys? We have the fiduciary responsibility to administer those $2 million, not you guys. It's a county grant, and we're going to make darn sure that we don't screw up and get this county sideways with anybody. It's a different sheriff in town. It's not the last boards, and that's why you see us actively involved in the strategic planning process in this county and actively involved in this broadband process. I want a contract with you guys, and we're going to get a funding. Okay, we're going to know and write vouchers. We're going to understand what you need. We're going to have that in our hands before you're submitting unofficial forms to them to work. We want to understand it because we want this to be successful, because I don't want to get down the road and find out that we don't have anybody subscribing. And Tom and I have and Jay have already made a commitment that the minute it starts costing this county money, that the internet's lit up with I need my roads fixed, I need affordable housing, and we're going to be spending money that we don't need to spend on maintaining a tower that nobody's renting. See, so I want to be right, and right now there hasn't been one landowner contacted or understanding where those towers are going to sit. They could still move, so we need to be involved, and I'm going to ask Clint to get the three of us some suggestions on what integration and engineering contract or whatever we're going to have for you guys to commit to with us, so that we have a good communications. And I don't and never want to see somebody sending me a letter complaining about Jay or Tom again. And I want you guys to participate. That meeting is an important meeting. You need to understand the potential to have broadband brought up the hardscrabble, helping people that are sick get their phones connected, and then at the same time even benefit the rest of this county with a better infrastructure for broadband. Hardline and towers. We're not going to abandon the towers, but we want to do it the right way. So we're going to work with you, and we're going to figure out how to structure our relationship so that it's official. Not, well, you guys will help, I'm sure, shake your hand, come back and tell me if we got the grant or not. We're going to be in the middle of it. So the meeting is at 3 to 5 or 7, could last longer.
3.
Down in Wetmore.
No.
Or here, I'm sorry, at the point. Winkler's going to be here. The CDOT C-band guy, the broadband guy, with the backing of the governor of the state of Colorado with different money, different responsibilities. And DOLA has made it clear, DOLA is not, there's an overlap there of responsibilities. So if we're partnering with CDOT, that's a good thing. They can't, intermingle funds. There's an issue there, and we'll have to understand that from them down there. And also the PUC is at these meetings, and Corey Gardner's office. So I don't think Corey's been invited. This is a workshop, and we're going to get together after this one, pending on what we find out, what our next step will be, and which community meeting we're going to get together and discuss it. But we're looking at you guys. You're the expert, Dale, on the technical piece of this, and I respect that. But you haven't been involved in what the possibilities are to complete that ring than you would have going wirelessly and then connecting and then trying to get somebody else to drag up another cable. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? I'm asking this as a citizen. I'm no longer on the board.
What?
So,
when did that happen?
Oh, I don't know. When was it, Charles? Anyway,
all right.
I'm still a member.
Citizen.
And still contribute financially to economic development, but I'm off the board right now. I think, Bill, I thought you brought up a good point about the teamwork. And the piece I don't understand at this point, again, it's because I have not been as actively involved, is why would the three of you head down to that particular meeting without involving economic development? I mean, because I think the team should be.
That's why
all you guys.
There's a time and place for it. We had no idea. We initially started that because we had 45 citizens that CenturyLink had no business case to even support. As far as they were concerned, they'll take the hit and not connect those guys. Period. I mean.
Can I just make a comment? I hear what you say. I think this needs to be a cooperative effort,
yes,
not a unilateral effort.
That's right.
That's why I went to Charles and I said, "Are you coming?" And
that's why I reached out to him before that.
And I interrupted you earlier today because I had given him bad information. I'll go 3 o'clock, not 2 o'clock. But the point is,
right.
The more heads
so,
we have, the better.
Right.
They have started this initiative. It was given to us because they need county involvement. I think this needs to be a partnership.
Okay, I want to make this really clear, timeline-wise. It wasn't after that. I looked to you to get us, after that last meeting, it was important for us to involve you because the solution could involve impacting the tower ring in a good way.
Yeah.
Or could change it so, well, it's always good because it can either stay the same or get better, either with less or more, who knows. But we wanted you there, and that's all I asked Charles, what's your opinion? Because it seems to me, no matter how it goes, we're going to need an extension and get some time to do it right. We're not in a runaway here. The March 24th or the 27th is the deadline for the grant. And it's easy to get an extension, and that's why Christy wanted us to be proactive now, get it in the mail, get it there. It's not changing the scope one bit. You know, it's not going to change the plan. It's just going to delay, give us the option to wait to start breaking ground until we know what we're breaking ground on. I don't want to incite some poor guy on one of these towers is right on the top of a house. It's not going to be built on top of that guy's house. He doesn't even know which one it is. I don't want to get them wound up yet until we decide is that tower going to be there or not. Depending on if CenturyLink can bring in a lot more capability hardwired at their cost, I want to see that and make a decision then, not guessing now. So go ahead. Got a question?
So I'm Lisa Drew from the Custer County Hospital District. So these gentlemen have been very helpful as far as the clinic is concerned. We have some serious broadband issues. We have an average of 4 up and 4 down every day when we're trying to conduct business, trying to take care of patients. And there is fiber currently at the Sheriff's Department.
Yep.
And so I would caution the board, so CenturyLink told us they would bring that in for free, 633 yards from the Sheriff's office to the clinic. The last email that I got was $14,500 to do that. So, however, if there is some kind of collaboration that we can provide, I'm all in.
Oh, that's great.
Because we are...
CDOT made a big point of telling us at that meeting that we were at that the county is part of the process. That's what is part of our return on investment of working with these guys with our project, is we want to guarantee there's a fiber bundle. We were talking, what, 10 bundles of 10 gig each, something like that, that would be at the disposal of the county to use for our future and current needs, and for free.
Well,
so that...
So the very first email that I got was, we can have an exclusive fiber bundle, and it would be, I believe the first quote was $3,200 per month.
Yeah.
Then it came down to $2,400 a month, and then I said, hello, no. The latest that we got now was $260 a month. So we came from $3,200 to $260 with me being a persistent person. Perhaps, I'm not sure. But again, still have those challenges. I would just caution, CenturyLink, in my opinion, is seeing the dollar signs that are involved in bringing the business here. So I just wanted to have that on the record.
And that's the beauty of this meeting right here. It's a partnership, and we need to look at the bigger picture. It's not just about 6 towers. It's about broadband. And we are committed, these 3 guys right here, to do it right. And to do it without trying to guess what I'm thinking, or to misinterpret what I said or what Jay said or what Tom says. We are equal in power right here. Talking to me isn't going to do you any good unless you talk to the other 2 guys. It goes the other way around. But we each have responsibilities to initiate things and get things started, as you know. And we all have our areas that we focus on, and we bring those issues to this board. That's why it's on this agenda right now. It didn't have to be. But I wanted to make sure we had a public discussion so that the county understands what we're doing, and that you guys understand how we're going to work together.
I think you bring up an excellent question. Why wasn't Economic Development Corporation invited to this meeting on the 20th initially? I can't answer that. I expressed my concern with Mr. Pfeiffer that I believed we needed to get Economic Development Committee involved and we need to get DOLA involved.
Right.
And I was looking, I didn't mean to be rude while you were talking, but I was trying to look for the email that he had sent me back, and it basically said, at the appropriate time, everybody will be invited.
See, it was a workshop that
That's literal
CDOT said.
translation,
They actually
but
set the meeting up.
I talked with Vern, our IT guy, because I needed a little clarification. I'm certainly a little behind the curve on some of this stuff. CenturyLink does have, obviously, a fiber coming into the valley. A portion of that comes to the courthouse and then is split into partial fiber going to the court system and partial fiber going to the sheriff's office.
And that the school's also tapped into.
Yes, but not from
through
here.
here.
I'm just
Right.
talking about what the county's directly involved in. Yes, the school has a bundle going to them as well, but not through the courthouse. The bundle comes to the courthouse, split into sheriff and the courts. Our conversation with Vernon was basically based around this. If this whole thing moves forward, and in fact, CenturyLink does bring that fiber up the Hardscrabble Canyon to the county, should we be requesting a portion of that bundle dedicated to the county? And he certainly thought we should, as do I. We're currently using 400 megs to service those three entities, the courts, the sheriff, and the county. We had a discussion about requesting 6 gigs of 6 to 10 gigs of trunk space bandwidth on that fiber line. I don't know what's going to happen to that. I certainly think it's incumbent upon us to request CenturyLink to dedicate some of that for the county in exchange for whatever is relevant at the time, be it money, be it access, be it a part and parcel to this project of maybe bringing broadband up. Nothing's been decided. We were instrumental in trying to get people to come to the table. CDOT, initially CDOT and CenturyLink didn't want to have any discussions with each other. That was what we were told.
Which is generally.
Yeah.
They got over that real quick.
And so to sit in that meeting in Wetmore and see these guys up on the edge of their chairs very excited about, well, let's do this. If we could just do this and make this happen. Right. And I said to them in Wetmore, the first thing we are not going to forget is that you have to deal as a phone company with our 40 customers.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, that's understood. We're going to deal with that. But we're more excited about getting broadband up the valley and in the process dealing with those 40 phone customers.
And showcasing that.
And this E-band microwave thing is a short-term to a medium-term solution to getting them phones until, I don't want to say until the fiber comes up here, but until they look at bringing that fiber up here. My concern has been all along, I haven't done a very good job of voicing it, that we do not want to, that we shouldn't appear to excommunicate your group, your company, and the work you've done to get us to this point.
Right.
That would be irresponsible and unfair and rude. I guess I would ask, does your company feel like there are opportunities to explore other avenues to get to the same solution that we were all after in the beginning? My other question was, initially, let's assume the EDA grant goes through, we get funded. How are we going to light these 6 towers? I'm sure you've told us that. I do not remember. I know in 2023 there was a plan to bring fiber from somewhere else. But until then, were we going to light those towers wirelessly?
The county asset will be 6 towers.
Right.
Standalone towers.
Right.
Non-intelligent towers. No lighting on them because they're below the FAA threshold requiring
He
lighting.
meant feet.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean physical lights, I mean fire them
Now, the
up.
second
Yeah.
part is how are a signal going to be received at the tower and distributed to customers? And as is presented in the study, the ETA, and as was approved by DOLA, we believe that there's a requirement for 2 providers, wireless providers in Custer County, so that we'll have competition, that will benefit from competition. But if we had 4 or 6 providers, then nobody would survive and we would all suffer. So the intent is that there will be 2. The 2 predominant carriers currently in Custer County is Hilltop Broadband and CCOM Wireless. Both of them are fully briefed on this project. Both of them are supportive of this project. Both of them have given us letters of intent that they will occupy for a reasonable monthly rate the 6 towers so that they can significantly expand their market penetration in Custer County.
So with Tom's point, I'm glad you brought it up, that to feed that, it's a wireless connection, which is not the greatest I mean, it's still gonna have its issues. They gotta feed it, CCOM gets it fed, Hilltop does that. Yeah, the solution we're all headed for is a fiber connection to those towers so that you can wirelessly shoot it off of those towers and connect reliably connect it, better than depending on those companies.
In a perfect world, I would agree
Right.
with your statement, but when you are in a very rural area,
right,
with time being a factor in the equation,
sure.
Wireless, because we can now run a gig from CCOM's head end and from Hilltop's head end out to each of these towers, and that will support an awful lot of broadband.
Yep.
In a perfect world, if we were designing this, would we want fiber optic from their head end to each of the towers? Absolutely. Sure. That's not how this project will evolve.
And that was my question.
And CenturyLink's coming at 96 will not make that happen.
Not in and of itself, I agree with you 100%, but I believe it's very irresponsible to think that CenturyLink's gonna bring fiber up here to their shack on whatever that is, 4th Street, and then that's the end of it, they just walk away.
And that was the point I was trying to make.
I guess my question, if they're so willing to do it now, why haven't they already done it?
Great question,
Yeah.
great question. Because number one, I think that that company is feeling the pressure, believe it or not, this is my opinion, about those 40 phone customers.
That's right.
That's where it started. That's what changed the game. Is it driving it all? No, that'd be ridiculous to think 40 people are going to drive that multi-billion-dollar global company. But I believe that's what brought those people to the table.
But then what
cinched
it, finished that thought, was CDOT's involvement. Because they are actually leveraging the CDOT broadband money to get up and dig that cable. It makes it a business case for them to come up, but they weren't going to do that by themselves.
There's even more to it. Cory Gardner's office, the governor's office have all been involved with these 40 people. That pressure is the pressure I personally believe got this going.
That's right.
And when Chairman Flowers said earlier when we were sitting in Whitmore, these guys, for the first time ever, I walked out of that meeting going, I can't believe this. These guys were working together. Say, hey, if I do this, will you do that? And they go, sure, and I'll do this. They came out with a solution, and they truly were trying to get this done.
A potential solution, Jay.
A potential solution, I agree with you. They came out with a game plan that they didn't have before. At least they had a plan they were going to execute.
What was
that?
Let me make that point even clearer, not clearer, enhanced on that. We looked at many solutions to get these people connected. You know, dragging the wires up the old South Hard Scramble, getting cables over here, coming in off of Rosita with a cable there, but that only fixed those 45 guys, and it cost $3 or $4 million that you would have to go and replace things with anyway. So the solution, this is, the potential solution is there is going to be a solution. You're going to see a fiber coming up of some kind. We don't know what or a combination of microwave, who knows? But that's the next steps, and that's why it's important for us to be engaged in it, so we can connect these towers of ours to it, and make it more robust than just the wireless interim fix that we're gonna have.
What's their time frame? I mean,
Well, the only firm time frame they really have on the table right now is dealing with the telephone customers down there.
yeah,
And they thought that
that's a big project.
they thought that
Fiber.
that E-band deal would be maybe 30 to 45 days.
Yeah, and
E-band
CDOT was
microwave.
really optimistic, and they said they can get that done quickly, they think. That gives them time to keep the pressure off. The microwave
Yeah.
solution.
Right.
And then we pushed, all right, how long, they've done this micro trenching in Wolf Creek Pass, they've done it up over Aspen, one of the passes there, in a couple of communities. And it's a very quick technique that they drag it up the highway roadbed and cover it back up with asphalt. But that can be done. It's a matter of getting the commitment from CenturyLink to spend the money, and they were enthused, and getting CDOT, which they were very, very enthused because of the broadband publicity they get out of this thing. So that's what we're going to learn on the 20th. More where we're headed.
Now, they didn't have, to answer your question, I don't believe they had a timeline about that. One of the,
a year or two.
From my understanding, one of the huge problems with getting broadband up here, fiber, and we talked about it initially when we looked at the tower project, was the rock formation. And so all of a sudden, CDOT seems like they're at the table. God knows what drove them there necessarily, and said, yeah, you know what, we can use the right of way. Now, a month before that, CenturyLink said there is no way that CDOT is going to allow us to trench anywhere near their right of way unless we meet their specifications, which was within 12 feet of the right of way, had to be 5 feet deep.
Right, but you understand that nothing happens by accident. The reason CDOT is engaged now and more willing to have these discussions, because CDOT has always allowed CenturyLink to put fiber along their highway, but it was being very expensive because they only allowed one particular type of laydown of fiber. Back in the old days, we all proposed that CDOT put a quad 4-inch conduits under the highway at a certain depth, and those would be available for the next 50 years to be used. In somebody's infinite wisdom, a few years ago, the state said, that's a lot of money we don't have.
Yeah,
we're going to stop doing that. So to make a long story short, CDOT has been directed at the national level that they must have communications capability on every foot of every highway that's publicly funded, because the ubiquitous vehicles, smart vehicles, in the next 10 to 20 years are going to be running on these highways, and they have to start getting ready. So the only reason that CDOT is changing its position is because they have been informed that they must have intelligence communications on every foot of every highway in the state of Colorado. So, but the timing is everything.
It is.
So if that's allowing you to have this conversation, so back to our point, when I go to a meeting like we're going to on Thursday, I'm happy that there's such a meeting because that's a step in the right direction. But most of what we'll hear Thursday is noise, because until it gets into a document that can be distributed around, along with cost and timing, it's noise.
Yeah. Well, and none of that will happen without that noise. So
That's
we'll
right.
see.
That's right.
We're not.
And you don't have to waste your time
but I'm
there,
happy-
Dale,
I'm
but we would
happy
like
to
to
come to
have you
your meeting,
understand so
but
that you understand what pushes
I
on
know,
us
but
is
our
going to push on
position,
you
need to
guys.
understand our position. We've been doing this for 6
I
years
know.
because we believe that Custer County is entitled to good, sustainable broadband.
Okay.
And it's easy to do. It just takes some energy and some money and resources. And we are at the door here now of installing the next step in the process that we've been pursuing, which will open up the door to broadband to a good number of county residents that have never had that opportunity before. I laugh every time somebody tells me they get 1.5 megabits down on their DSL and they have less than 1 meg up. I just give them a cube of sugar and tell them to go sit down, because that's a terrible way to live.
I have less than that, Dave.
I don't have any sugar.
I guess we're trying to look at the big picture. And you guys said it from day one. I mean, you argued your case in that courtroom to these commissioners. We have to do something to get broadband in here. This is what we're recommending. And we went along with that.
And
No problem.
we're doing that.
And we're doing that. Can the game change? I think it can. Are you going to fight that change? I don't think you will, because I think in your true hearts you still want broadband to this county, regardless of how we get that, as long as we're responsible with our fiscal approach. Now, if I'm wrong, you tell me that. But I believe you guys would support
100%. But we also, as professionals, owe it to you to tell you that what you're doing is complimentary. It's not in lieu of what we're doing.
We never said it was.
I didn't say I did.
Excuse me. No, I'll stand before. You're exactly right, sir. And I do not believe this commission has any intent to go that route.
Well, then we're in good shape.
That's really what I thought. See, that's what I believe.
The question I asked, with what I understood you said, you wanted to divert the $1 million that we've got DOLA approval for to this project, and you wanted me to stop the matching funds. My question in the email I sent out was, do you two agree with him?
And I never said that.
You got my
I did not. You misunderstood everything I said.
Well, I'll put it this way.
So that's the way it is. We're not going to argue about it.
I think
That was a failure to communicate.
Yeah, exactly. I think what Commissioner Candy was going at is, can we approach this together?
Right.
Can we look at the funding together? I never thought he was saying divert the $1 million.
Ever.
Mr. Prince and I both reminded Mr. Canada, as we do each other, we're talking about board decisions here.
Right.
So I would not be in favor of diverting that $1 million unless we knew EDA was out of the mix and we were at risk of losing that $1 million or diverting it into something else.
And
Then I would
leveraging
support
something else.
that.
And so that was,
But
we were
until
looking
then-
at options, Charles. That's all I've ever asked.
That's
You know?
not what I understood.
That's exactly right. So I never said, well, we're going to stop the six.
When you said you had talked to Earl Holder,
Yep.
and you were looking at rewriting the grant and extending
No, I didn't say rewriting it at all. I said, what are the possibilities? Are there options possible? And he said, what? Bring it to us.
We have an agreement to disagree.
Let me just say, obviously between the two of you, there was miscommunication. The communication you put out, I took very clearly, okay? I took it to be truth, and what caused it was the miscommunication. When I took it the way I did, I voiced my concern, which is my job to do. Subsequent to that, I mean, within minutes of sending an email, we were on the phone discussing this, and I said, that is not the way I took it. I understood much more. So this was a true miscommunication. I think Chairman Flower is 100% correct. If the project needs to change because new information is coming and better solutions are here, without delaying broadband for multiple years, we need to look at it. However, my feeling is, if we're looking at bringing fiber up, it's going to delay this for 5 or 8 or 10 years, some significant long period of time. And our project, the project that we've already, and I say our because we are behind your project.
It's our project.
It's our project. If that's going to get it done within a much sooner, reasonable period of time, and it becomes obsolete, or we have to modify it later by bringing cable up to these towers that we already have, I'm in favor of that. I do not want to put a project off long term. I don't want to say 5 years from now we want to be sitting at this table, whoever the commissioners are, going, God, we need broadband really badly. I mean, I just don't want to be there.
So it sounds like we should just keep right on doing what we're doing. You're going to keep on doing what you're doing. They're going to run side by side, and as long as we know what you're doing and you know what we're doing, none of us.
Assuming they complement each other,
Let him
I will
finish
not
speaking.
go off on different angles.
And the only way that we're going to determine whether or not they don't complement each other, because I will tell you right now they do complement each other, It may be a way to accelerate our phase 5 by bringing that fiber up the highway. My point here right now is that it's noise, it's not reality. When it's reality, more power to us. But right now, we're running side by side, all of it for the benefit of Custer County, and we ought to just press on and keep on working. I would ask that, in good faith, that this letter that you're sending to DOLA, asking about a potential delay in the project that we are working on, we would like to have a copy of that letter if it's sent.
That letter has not been approved, just like we said just a minute ago. It takes 2 of the 3 commissioners to approve this. This has not been brought to us before. I read it this morning for the first time, and my first gasp was, what is this? And then I realized it was just a proposal. We will have discussions on it, and we will make that. But I think it is only appropriate for economic development to be completely involved in anything we do. This started out as your project. We kind of inherited it because you needed a fiscal agent, because you needed county backing. We bought into it. And I, for one, will not cut you out. I will tell you that now. I will fight that tooth and nail.
Because your life is better when you have broadband at your house than it used to be.
If you're asking me personally, do I enjoy my broadband better than my dial-up? The answer is yes, but that is not the slightest concern here.
I understand.
The concern is for my constituency. I want my people to be able to, and I say my people, the county, to be able to receive it. I want the economic benefits so we can fix your roads and we can help the hospital. And we can do those things that we do when we have more money coming in. If 50 people open a business and they make good money and we tax them and we have extra money, just think of all the things this county could do for the betterment of this county. That's what I'm concerned about.
And we're in sync with you.
I know you are.
Closing comment?
Yeah, one last thing then, tag on to what you just said. It is, you gotta get used to saying our, it's not your program. Meaning, you're so wedded to it, it's all about our tower, we're gonna keep going the way we are. Maybe, maybe not, but we're gonna make that decision together. So you all have got to start being part of the team here. Not you're a company, you're gonna go do this because we said, okay, here's a couple.
Invite them into the team.
That's right. And that's why we started doing that in the first place. And that relationship has to change. You need to understand, we have just like Tom and Jay just pointed out, the people of this county want it, and we want it the best way we can. And if there's a better way of getting it sooner, that's what we're gonna do. You know, and if it means, like Tom said, if it's a 5-year delay, 20, whatever it is, we're not gonna buy into that as a team. Unless you come to us and convince us there's some other reason we ought to change course.
We have been transparent since day one. We will continue to be, and we will work with you.
And we really, I want to tell you, this county needs to really appreciate what you've done. Without your infrastructure bringing this to us, bringing the whole project to the forefront,
right.
I don't know if this county would even be looking at broadband today. So we all owe you a thank you.
Yep.
And I mean that sincerely.
My closing comment, and I guess I would direct it to you, sir, Mr. Dale, and I say this with all respect. I get where you're saying that you think this meeting on the 20th is noise. I kind of take offense to that. I believe that this meeting is in the spirit of moving this project forward, whatever that would look like, have no idea. But I think that the phrase, it's just noise, has a negative connotation to it. I think it's counterproductive. I think we need to respect, I think you guys need to respect, we need to respect all these processes and not dismiss them because they were not our idea. I don't know what's going to come out of this meeting. Maybe nothing. But maybe something very critical and important to our problem here could come out of that meeting. So I would just ask respectfully that you appreciate and at least allow them the benefit of the doubt to try to move us forward. That's all.
And I hear your comment, because I don't think noise is bad.
Okay, because I do. I think
you've just got to understand his definition of noise.
All right.
What time is that meeting?
That meeting is scheduled from 3 to 5, and then that group is going to order dinner off of the menu at the
Rancher's Roost.
Yeah.
And it's an open meeting?
Yes,
yes.
It's at the conference, in the conference center at Rancher's Roost.
Everybody's welcome, not everybody.
Well, there have been, within the last year, significant visibility into CDOT's efforts, because that's been a bone of contention between the Office of Information Technology and other government state deals, is because CDOT's been very quiet and protective of what they have and what their plans are. There's some indications out of the Office of Information Technology that some breakthroughs had been made with CDOT. I personally interrogated and asked the head of OIT, can you tell us what fiber we've got in Custer County? And it was, well, no, that's dependent upon CenturyLink. By circumstantial evidence, we've determined what CenturyLink has got here, and it's a limited amount of fiber that was brought in here almost 20 years ago.
Right.
To some extent, when other activities in other communities have been more aggressive, there's been some positive feedback on CenturyLink, but the bottom line is we're still a small market and we don't show up well as far as their return on
You're going to be
investment.
pleasantly surprised, though, Charles, when you hear CDOT talk at this meeting.
I'll put it this way, proof's in the pudding.
Sure.
and for how long?
Talks to you.
Yeah. They have a burden of profitability that a lot of the rest of us don't have. And, they can make a whole lot better bucks along the I-25 corridor. So the question is, when the solution to the 40-plus families down there was talked about, that made sense. Yes, it's expensive, and yes, it's difficult, but we got 40-plus families down there that don't have a telephone. But then it was projected that, and again, the way I understood it, from McKenzie Junction or thereabouts to come on in to our two towns, that sounded good, and I thought, well, that certainly complements everything else. But then what I understood was said, oh, but it's going to take your $1 million,
Yeah.
or our $1 million.
And there was the fly in the ointment.
Right. And the discussion that we had just reinforced that the discussion had already been initiated with DOLA, and I said, gosh, I wish I had known about that. And then the question of canceling our EDA efforts, and my explanation, hey, the guy that he's not a decision person. His job, Trent's job, is to get grant packages so they can be presented. And I said, this, we don't need, and we're 90% complete, we don't need to confuse his life. If we're going to cancel it, it would be at a decision level, and oppose that, and plus it buys us some time. So I'll put it this way, I stated what my understanding of the conversation was. I don't embellish and I don't lie, so take it for what it's worth. But we will be at the meeting on the 20th, and we realize that technology changes, politics changes, but as I stated in it, to postpone or cancel our tower project at this stage really hurts us. Our economic study was based on that increase and everything, and we've got customers and people that their lives depend on it. And one of the things that came apart in the survey that we did to support the SNG financial statement is that if we don't fix it, they'll leave. And so those people have got that latitude, and if they don't see the appropriate speed in what they think is appropriate for us to better the situation, most of them are to a point where, they'd hate to leave this area for all of its intrinsic values, but their businesses and their life are dependent on the broadband.
And I think as long as we keep our eye on the target, and we don't lose sight of that very thing that drove this project from the beginning, hopefully we don't get too muddled down in the particulars as we go along, which obviously we have stubbed our toe here. So we just gotta keep, in my opinion, in the forefront, we have an inherent responsibility to improve broadband capability to the citizens of this county.
And open communication.
And open communication. How that happens, I don't know.
Yeah.
And certainly, and I'm sorry, ma'am, I have postponed you a little bit, and I apologize. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank and say how much I appreciate both groups, the work that you're doing to bring broadband to us. My husband and I have a tax business. We live in rural, we said Schultz Ranch, but it's very rural Custer County. We can't work here without broadband. But when we bought the house, we were told by CenturyLink, oh, we can bring DSL to you guys. But when it was time to give them the money and the contract and everything, oh, you're just a little too far. You're about 100 feet too far. Or maybe it was 100 yards. It was a very, so the only thing that I would like to caution, CenturyLink makes promises, at least in our experience, that they do not follow through on. So that's my...
Your point's well taken.
Thanks for that.
They're driven by one thing. There's no question about it. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
My husband worked really, pushed, cajoled, pleaded, everything. Finally, they came up and said, well, to bring it to you guys, it would cost X number of dollars. We'd never get our money back. So we understood that. But the point was that they said before we bought the house, oh yeah, we can bring you DSL.
Okay.
Not in your lifetime, though. That's right.
Gentlemen, thank you. On behalf of the commissioners, I thank you. I know you're frustrated. I think it is really poor communication on everyone's part. I'm not throwing Commissioner Cannon under the bus. Certainly, I'm reminded daily as a commissioner that I need to be very careful of what I say and how I say it.
Right.
And I'm learning that.
So I'm going to echo that. And thank you for doing it, and thank you for listening. And I encourage you now, I challenge you guys to look beyond what it was and what it can be. Because we're going to get creative juices. And when we were talking before, it was, what are the impacts if we do this? We've got $2 million we're dealing with, and if we change how we're doing things to get things better, what are some options to make that happen? So keep your minds open and keep working with us.
Well, the meeting on the 20th will be interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I
We
think
didn't have
we'll,
any of that information.
That's right.
We'll,
That's why
I mean,
we
we
want you
didn't,
there.
we certainly were encouraged. We didn't get all giddy and fell in love with CDOT and CenturyLink just because they were having a conversation down there, but it was enlightening and hopeful for me.
It really was.
Made me want to go to this meeting and see if their talk, if they had anything to put up behind what they were talking about. So we'll see. I don't know. Thank you, gentlemen, again. Appreciate your time, your patience to get where we're at today.
See you all at 3.
Dale, thanks, Marty.
Thanks, Dale.
Bill? Jay?
You get up here,
Yeah, I'll
you
get
old
up.
rascal. Thank you, sir.
By the way, when we got the
board
DOLA
member.
grant, there was mentioned a memorandum of agreement, whatever we want to call it, between the county and what was needed to be done. We have done that before on other grants, and
Those structures.
it never came up. No,
Well,
we're still encouraging the formalization.
Yeah.
Needs to be.
Yeah, because really the only thing, from my understanding, was contractually was just whatever was in that grant that we agreed to. So that's, no, didn't really.
That grant was.
Yeah, we've had nothing. We're going to formalize
Yeah.
it.
So let's not let that fall through the crack.
You've got the administrative help.
Yep. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Get back on the appropriate
Stand up here.
document. Next item of business is the Justice Center Planning Grant, a discussion item. I asked this to be put on the agenda. Again, I'm sure people in the audience get tired of hearing it, but we just don't have the luxury of having these conversations amongst ourselves to figure out how we're going to do things. We got to do that in public, and that's why I asked this to be put on here. Obviously, we're moving forward with our Justice Center planning, efforts, in large part now due to the fact that we have been granted $65,000 to move forward with that. Those grants were written with the understanding that the county would put up $10,000 if DOLA would put up $25,000, and if the underfunded courts would put up $40,000. Underfunded courts and DOLA have committed those funds to us, so we need to have a conversation about how we're going to come up with $10,000 of matching money and where that's going to come from. I would certainly, Chair would entertain some discussion about that.
$10,000. We've had a windfall of tax revenue that just came in.
Yes. So, without touching the restricted funds that we have, for example, road and bridge, which are just hands-on, there is excess money, multiple budgets that we'll see at the end of the year.
Right.
And I would suggest that we take a look at the budget at the end of the year, the 2018 budget, and see what funds have excess money. I think if you add those up on the non-restricted funds, it'll be much, much higher than $10,000. And we'll be in a better position at that time to say, let's take excess money from A and B and C till it adds up, and we could put it together that way. I have no qualms that there's gonna be plenty of money available.
When's it due?
I don't know, Brenda, did you get a date? I have not seen a date that we had to execute those
When do we have to match the fund?
contracts.
When we expend them.
Right.
So that could be
So we don't have to,
middle of February.
quote unquote, we don't have to post this $10,000 matching grant, we just have to finance that as it comes along.
Right.
Because it's a reimbursement, both of those are reimbursement style
Yes.
grants. I'm looking for a line item in our budget. I agree with what you gentlemen are saying. I think that we need to decide where that money's gonna come from at some point, maybe not, we don't have to decide that today.
No, but didn't Virginia come in here, or somebody did last week when we had our meeting, and there was $76,000 that came in.
Right.
Excess tax money, it's
Correct.
general fund money.
Correct. And I think,
And we just need to put an earmark on it.
right, and I think what we need to do is we need to pin that down, find out how much that is, and what it will look like at the end of this month, in another 2 weeks.
Right.
And then go ahead and earmark, instead of moving all of that into the general reserve, where we normally would, let's carve out 10,000 of that, and the rest of it can go into the reserve.
So, do we have something for the Justice Center set up yet, or is it economic development?
That's what I'm looking for.
I don't know if I don't think we have an account set up for Justice Center, but it would certainly make sense at this point, now that we've gotten the commitment from DOLA, and we've gotten the commitment from underfunded courthouse grant, that we will start expending county money for that. So
We
I
need to
think
have
we need
Donna
an
suggest
account, we need
some
an
place that
account
she
for that.
can pull it from, like if we want to bank it in the economic development line.
She needs to set up in our
somewhere.
chart of accounts, an
Sure.
account for Justice Center.
There might be something, because we have done Justice Center,
Yeah,
or not,
but that's true, there probably is
underfunded,
one. You're right.
underfunded grants.
Yeah, we got something going there.
So there might already be something set up.
We had budgeted in, and I just cannot.
Are you in the 18 budget or 19?
This is 19. We had budgeted $20,000 to go into capital improvement, I believe.
Yeah, but we need a specific account for
Well-
Justice Center, I think.
Oh, I agree.
She subcategorized them.
That's right. Within that,
Within one of them,
we
without-
have put $20,000 in there to be used as matching grant monies. I tried to look this up this morning before the meeting started and just couldn't get it done, but,
Do we need to, we can
talk to Donna about that.
talk to her and then have her propose something for us?
I think we have the
Gotta
money,
have Yeah.
we gotta decide what line item we're gonna take that from.
Right.
I don't wanna hodgepodge it when those vouchers come in to say that's coming out of this line item on the budget. I believe it's within, economic development and something else.
Well, you did put that 20,000 in the commissioners for grant match.
That's the one I'm talking about. I could not find that
It's
line.
in the commissioners' budget. It is,
I think of our discretion.
community outreach.
Community
grant
outreach,
match.
thanks, good night, that's the one I was thinking about, so.
I'm having a little angst with using community outreach money for the Justice Center. I would much rather say in the month of January, when the vouchers are paid and we know before the excess money that the county will have goes into reserve, I think we could earmark
Make
10
it a-
grand for that, put it into a Justice Center matching fund that either a subcategory or a new category, and do it that way. I think
Set up a
outreach
category.
needs to be for outreach. If we have,
Well, it
we'll
is
know how much
labeled,
we'll
Yeah,
pay.
let me,
it's labeled both, community outreach / grant match.
Oh, I got it, okay,
yeah,
thank you.
it's, 311, and that,
That'd be okay,
Ms.
just a
Donna
grant
asked me,
match.
what title do you want on that?
That'll
It's
work.
page 15, and we just said, well, let's, instead of putting two lines in there, let's call it community outreach and grant match. So those dollars were intended,
Yes, sir.
to some degree
So
to
we
be
can
used for
augment
match,
that with,
matching grants. So that's what I would probably recommend initially. There's $20,000 budgeted. I think we had expended a little bit already. No,
no, we haven't.
that was previously, this is
That's a new
19,
budget,
sorry,
that's
yeah.
a new budget.
So that money is there and available. That's, I would recommend
Is there
we
any
maybe
left this
start
year?
with that, but.
Do we eat up?
We didn't have any last year, or this year, and
Right.
we didn't have anything budgeted in that line.
Sounds like it covered.
Yeah, I think we're there.
Okay, so what do we wanna do?
Well, I think, I don't know, I think we're at a point where we do one of two things. We either set on this and wait until we encumber some expenses and then make the decision, or we make the decision today.
Well, we can decide,
I don't care, I just
wait.
wanted to have the conversation.
We gotta wait and see what the fallout is and
So-
decide to cut some in.
So I think, just kind of cut to the chase, we know we have the money, we're not ready to expend it at this point. Let's just wait until the time comes, and then we could decide is this in fact the most appropriate place, or is there someone else? But we know we're not gonna have to turn around and go, oops, we can't meet our commitment.
Yeah, and we know there'll probably be other grants during the next year because,
We're going after a bunch.
we're going after a bunch. There's
Right.
the courthouse, and there's the
Okay.
airport, grants that we need to try to get,
Right.
Yeah.
And others.
Well, my intent in putting this on the agenda was to have this discussion that we're having right now.
I think it's
So I
absolutely
didn't
appropriate.
necessarily expect an outcome, just wanted to have that discussion and say, at some point.
We're committed to 10 grand,
Exactly.
and how we're gonna get it, and I think we're in pretty good shape.
Good, okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Where is the money, and I'm going somewhere with this, from the land sale designated? Because at one point it was talked about helping to finance the Justice Center. So, in your discussion, I would advise or suggest that you look at your long-term line items and not just the 10,000 grant, right?
Let me address that. The other gentleman, correct me if I'm wrong here, but not the last meeting, but the meeting prior to that, we had instructed Ms. Donna to create a line item in the budget that we can move funds into for the Justice Center,
Savings
of
account.
which the land sales money was earmarked for that.
Correct.
That's perfect. So would your grant money come out of that, the
No.
10,000?
No.
It has to be separate?
We have a separate line item for that altogether.
Alright. Thank you for
It
that.
doesn't mean we couldn't decide to take some out of there and put it.
Exactly.
I,
Separate restricted, we can do whatever.
That's right.
you bring up an item I was gonna put on a subsequent agenda at some point. Well, and we can talk about it. It's on the agenda today, but if this board votes to approve a lease contract to AT&T for the lease of some land for a tower, I would also like us to consider, and I will request the board consider, that we earmark those dollars as well for the Justice Center. But that's a conversation and a decision to be made. Yeah, we do have, yeah, we do have it in the works now budgetarily to earmark dollars specifically for that Justice Center. And initially the conversation we had as a board was to use those dollars to offset the mortgage, annual mortgage payment.
Right.
Or lease payment, so
That
not
has to
mortgage,
be,
but
yeah.
annual lease payment.
Thank you.
You bet. You're welcome. Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Next item of business is the name change amendment. The name change has already been done, but we need to amend Resolution 18-27. Counselor, would you take the lead?
Well, actually, I think Brenda's the one that handled this, but it turns out we called the road Valley View Drive, one of those roads, and there is a Valley View Drive, it turns out, even though it's not used for anything, but there's one of the books. And what name is it? Valley View Lane? Is that what's available?
Yes, I believe that.
Okay. Yeah, do you have that resolution?
I'm digging it out as fast as
You
I
should
can
have a
go,
hard
but
copy
yes.
right in front of you.
Yeah, I was looking on my computer, sorry.
So everything else is the same, just changing the name to, so we don't have a duplicate.
I'll go ahead and I'll move that we adopt Resolution 18-27 amended, which is to amend the prior resolution, changing the name to Lane instead of Drive, Valley View Lane instead of Drive, so that we don't have duplicate road names.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 18-27 amended. Resolution of the Board of County Commissioners for Custer County changing the names of certain county roads. That being changing Valley View Road to Valley View Lane. Discussion. Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries. The resolution has been, amended resolution has been approved. Gentlemen, if you would care to sign that.
I'll have your pen because this one's been pulled.
Sure.
Come on.
And next item of business on the agenda is a resolution 18-33, setting a surety bond for the county treasurer. And I would move that the Board of County Commissioners set a surety bond for $100,000 to be purchased through Arthur J. Gallagher as the company providing that.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to set a surety bond for $100,000 for our county treasurer. Discussion. I spoke with Miss Virginia about this. Obviously, it's kind of a housekeeping thing. Anytime the treasurer takes office for a new term, we have to do this. As council informed us earlier, it hasn't really been done in the past, but we're trying to get some of these housekeeping items cleaned up. This will cost the county $100. Again, that'll be purchased through Arthur J. Gallagher, which is obviously involved in CCI and CTSI. Further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. I think it's in here, yes it is, December 20th she'll be sworn into office, so that will occur. Ms. Kelly's going to take care of that, correct? Mm-hmm. And state statute says that this has to be done before she takes office on January 1. Hearing no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of setting a surety bond for $100,000 for the treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
So Kelly, remember in another 4 years how to do it again.
I know. That's why I think it's always forgotten, is because it's only happened. I can't even remember the year with you.
Gotta put it on
4 years.
Virginia's
Yeah.
to-do list in her office.
Yeah.
She ought to be,
Yeah.
as a treasurer, here are the things you have to do.
Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna put a little sticky note on the surety bond itself, so that when I go
Okay.
file it, I'll think, oh, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Oh,
Is it something that we have to renew each year, or is this good for 4 years now?
it's actually good for 3 years.
3 years.
Which is really weird, because we're right in the middle of a thing. This, the one where the current bond expires either 19 or 20.
Okay.
And then Don will do another one for another 3 years.
All right.
So I don't know why they're 3 years when the
Term of
office is 4 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Next item of business, consideration of the AT&T Tower lease, land lease. Gentlemen, I believe you had an opportunity to look at those documents, have those here in hard copy. I would move that we sign the lease agreements with AT&T.
J.U. seconded.
Okay, I second
If you
it.
care to, you certainly don't have to.
I'm happy to.
Motion to die for lack, if
I'm
that's the
happy
case.
to.
It's been moved and seconded to move forward with signing the lease agreements with AT&T for at least 2,500 square feet for a tower. Discussion.
I think that's a great deal for the county. I'm glad we're earmarking the money for our Justice Center, or the payment of it's the Justice Center, however you make it. So I think this is a really good deal, and I'm happy we're doing it.
Yeah, I guess, and I agree. I think part of the conversation is, are we going to earmark the revenues from this?
Off agenda.
If we don't, it's gonna get swallowed up, and then we're gonna be
I think it needs to be
looking to
earmarked.
fund.
But didn't we have a conversation with something to do with Verizon, with
Well,
the fact that they were, I don't know, I can't remember what it was. But
yeah, I've given
opportunity
thought
to
to
get more
that.
money. So
Bob Pfeiffer suggested that we consider building the tower ourselves and charging AT&T to be on it. From day one, I believe this commission has had the general attitude of we're really not in the business of being a utility. That would put us into the utility business very quickly. I don't look at this as a greed thing. I don't want to be greedy. If somebody else makes money, I don't care about that. We suggested a figure to AT&T to consider for a lease, and that's what they agreed to.
didn't they also agree to allowing us to have some space to rent on it?
Not us as a county. They agreed to
Make it available.
to others. Yeah, including us, if that's what
Well,
we
and
wanted to do.
what are we going to do with stuff that's on the tower now?
It stays.
Right. So,
Yeah, this wouldn't, as the lease reads, and I know council's read it, doesn't make any provision for us moving stuff. Initially, they indicated that if that was a deal breaker, they would have that discussion with us, but it never came to fruition because we're functioning on the tower that we've got. And initially, that was really tied to discussion of putting the tower where our tower is on the corner of the sheriff's.
Yeah.
That's where that conversation started, and then that fell through because it wasn't gonna fit their
there's no,
requirements.
we're going to move it when the Justice Center happens anyway, not that tower. The AT&T tower will probably ends up staying.
The AT&T tower will stay, exactly, yeah. What we do with the proposed Justice Center, who knows, but the AT&T tower would stay. I've got some angst about it. I'm not thrilled about signing up subsequent administrations, but I guess that's the cost of doing business.
I get it. We did sign up subsequent with the land we're leasing, with the Justice Project. I mean, we make the best deal we can, and hopefully future administrations are gonna see that we try to do what's right and they'll concur. On another note, can I make a friendly suggestion to amend your motion to include that revenues be earmarked in some form or fashion towards the Justice Center? That we could use it for the lease payments, or we could use it for anything else. But if we earmark the money for that, I don't want it to fall into a black hole.
Okay. Your amendment's so noted, I would second that amendment. It's been moved and seconded to amend the motion by adding the words "and earmark the revenues from the AT&T tower for the Justice Center." Is that accurate?
Sure.
Discussion about that, gentlemen?
Thanks, good idea.
Comment from the public on the amendment only, please? No, we're in discussion on the amendment. Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of amending the main motion by adding the words "and earmark the revenues from the AT&T tower for the Justice Center," say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion, the amendment carries. Now we'll reconsider the main motion of moving forward and signing the land lease for AT&T with the revenues being earmarked to go towards the Justice Center. Discussion. Public comment. Yes, sir.
Question, is that land for a new tower or renewing a lease under a tower
Good
that's
question.
already there?
This will be for a new 150-foot monopole tower to be located just south of the exercise yard of the sheriff's office, between the sheriff's office and the search and rescue building. They've already done all the engineering. We're still waiting on the signal interference, radio frequency interference study. They've guaranteed us in the contract if that's an issue, then we will stop right there and deal with that. But we have not gotten the final results of that, but really this lease contract's kind of contingent upon that.
Well, does that mean then that the tower that's out north of town, they'll abandon that? Or?
That's not an AT&T tower, so that's no part of this.
Oh, there is an AT&T tower.
That's T-Mobile.
Oh.
T-Mobile owns that tower.
AT&T's up on Tower Mountain.
Yeah.
I thought that was an AT&T
No,
tower.
we do have an AT&T tower on Lookout Mountain with the big drum on it.
Yeah. Shucks, I was hoping it'd be out my way on the east side of town.
You need to move closer to that.
Everybody hopes it'd be by them.
You need to move next to the courthouse. You'll get some of the finest cell phone reception available.
Oh, that'd be great, yeah. Can I pitch a tent over there?
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify, it's south, I'm looking at the map up there. Where on there will it be located?
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Between us and the.
It will be fenced. They're dealing with their power. They're dealing with all the infrastructure.
You said 150 feet?
150 feet, yes. Single pole, no guy wires.
No talks about making it look like a tree or anything
No.
like that.
No.
Verizon is doing that on theirs, yeah.
Yeah,
And make it more conspicuous where it is, there's nothing there.
That's right.
I guess you asked if there was discussion about that, and technically, yes, there was, and the rep from SSG said absolutely not. That's not any part of the business plan of AT&T, so they're not gonna try to camouflage it.
Yeah, it's just too much extra cost.
It will be lighted. Obviously, we hope down the line that we're gonna be looking at a new Justice Center and possibly a heliport. And that's all been taken into consideration on the engineering of this.
150 feet, it'll have to have a light on it.
No.
No?
No, not according to FAA, it does not.
200.
What?
200,
Oh,
But they agreed to put a light on it at our request because of a pending heliport.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought it was 150 feet.
I thought
It's
that
not.
was, FCC reg was over 100 feet.
Yeah. Council, would you interject? Would you like to interject anything about this contract? Anything bothered you about it?
No, the concerns we had about the, what was it, 25 years or something, and they changed that to 5 at our request. Everything else looked okay.
Yeah, that was one of my initial things, man. I just hate to sign up for a 25-year deal. This lease contract is up for renewal every 5 years, which was pretty huge on their part, because initially they were, no, that's our business model, we do 25 years. So thank you for working on that portion of it.
Yeah, they run the risk of a group of citizens getting together in 5 years and saying, this sucks, let's get it out of here.
Yeah, and I think it was 6 month notice that you had, that either party had to provide in order to cancel this lease contract. So,
Who are they paying us?
pardon me?
How much to get?
Great question. This contract is for $1,600 a month. I had done the numbers on that, it's $19,000 a year or something like that. So, was that an arbitrary number? Kind of. We started at a different number, and we kept climbing that number as we felt was appropriate, again, without letting greed drive the whole process.
Well, it's a bit more than I would imagine, but that's good.
I've talked to counties that have leased tower sites for more money than that, but their circumstances were a little different than ours. So, we did go back late in the process and ask SSG to see if AT&T would consider changing that number. He did. They said no, that was a number that was agreed on, and that's what they were prepared to stay with. So $1,600 a month.
Question, Tom, is there any provisions so that if and when they decide to leave, let's say Verizon comes in and gives us all free cell service, so we're going to quit AT&T, so that when it does end, whether it be 25 years or whatever, that they take the tower down?
Yeah, they'll continue. They'll have ownership of that unless they, and it's in the contract, they have a right to sell that tower. But yes, they would be responsible for that tower.
Good question. I was
Good question.
Absolutely.
Good question.
Because and it's a perfect example of competition. I imagine they decided to do this after they found out Verizon's coming.
Well, yeah.
After all the years we've been putting up with their crap.
Yeah, they knew that the town of Westcliff was entering into a lease agreement for Verizon as well. Yeah. And part of their impetus behind this tower is because they had signed a contract with the federal government to provide Next. Not
That
Next.
was a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's actually the right name. Anyway, FirstNet. FirstNet service for emergency service across the country, actually, and so that's their flagship reason to put this in. Okay, whatever. Guarantee you they're going to lease tower space.
They've been going for 5 years.
Yeah. So they're trying to, and any, as it turns out, any company can offer FirstNet services, but AT&T was given the exclusive right to move forward with that, and that's part of why they wanted this tower here. So it's a fairly lengthy contract, although I muddled through most of it and understood most of it. So I didn't see anything in there that was not in relationship to what we agreed on and talked about in subsequent meetings. So any other comments, public comment?
How about, is there, excuse me, when there's fencing around it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Chain link fencing, yeah.
With any kind of.
High enough to keep a deer out.
Yeah, they said they would put in a visual barrier. We did have that discussion, and we had asked them to move the location of that so that that fencing would line up with the proposed fencing of the sheriff's department. They've written a grant for that. They haven't received the money for it yet. I think that was $40,000 to fence the sheriff's property. And then we asked them to line up their whole project so the front of their fence would line up with our fence going north, and then line up with our fence going back to the east, so we don't have any little dead spots in there to try to mow and keep the weeds and trash out of. So they were very amenable to that, and they will access that from the, technically it's an alley. Well, it's not even an alley, it's a roadway that the county uses. It doesn't have, it's not a defined street east of the scales. That's where they're going to access it from. So, yeah. And it's in the contract that we guarantee them access from that roadway. I think someday we ought to look at either making that a street and naming it or doing whatever, I don't know, but it's kind of gray area. Oh gosh, get started on that. If there is no further discussion, gentlemen, all in favor of signing the AT&T tower lease on behalf of the county, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will do that.
And an afterthought on that, no, not a discussion.
Okay.
But in 5 years, when we come to renew that, I guess there's options for us to look at ways if we need to put somebody else on there and we got a request and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It seems like we have the flexibility. I like the 5-year thing because of that.
Yeah, if somebody else wants to be on that tower, they're gonna have to directly deal with AT&T. We don't have any part of that.
Unless
That's
it's a
in
frequency
contract.
issue for this.
Right.
We're gonna have to be involved.
Yeah, so the radio frequency interference thing is obviously impactful through the whole thing.
Or conversely, if we want to make more money because of some issue for whatever reason, it's still a contract we renew with a certain amount. We can change the.
Yeah.
Is that a recess?
Not quite. Yeah, this contract automatically renews unless there is an issue.
Right.
So if we do not,
We'd have to take active action.
yeah, if we don't bring an issue before them, it will automatically renew every 5 years with, and I didn't say this, 2%. Was it a 2% increase or one? It was 1 or 2% increase annually, or every 5 years.
Cost of
on the
living,
lease,
5-year
on the lease payment. So it's on a sliding scale. I can dig it out. So I think if you gentlemen don't mind, we'll wait to sign all these until after we've conducted, well, that may be the last of our business, but unless somebody has something else. Because there's quite a few copies, so it's gonna take us a little bit to sign
Almost the last thing on the agenda.
What did I do in my agenda? Public comment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shoot.
I get to do it.
Literally.
Yeah,
No, I mean figuratively.
Yeah, figuratively.
Dallas Anderson. I want to comment a little bit on the broadband and fiber-optic thing. From what little I can find out about it. We already know that the fiber-optic is almost to Greenwood and headed this direction.
Technically no, but go ahead.
Yeah.
It stopped right there.
Well, that's
It's
where
not.
it is now.
Yeah, it's not headed this direction.
Okay.
CenturyLink terminated it
The
right there.
the governor's broadband project is being, what do I want to say, driven is a good word for it, by the Rural Broadband Act of 2012 that the Congress passed during the Obama administration. The money was set for it, and just now they're beginning to appropriate it and disperse it. Colorado is getting in on the ground floor of that. That's one of the reasons that Verizon is coming, because that 1K cable is coming up here. And the best I understand is 1K means 1,000 strands. Part of that project is a proposed terminal at McKenzie Junction with a possibility of headed towards Lake San Isabel. Another terminal at 271 at Bear Basin Ranch to head north of there. It appears that they run CDOT in on it because that's the easiest way to run that thing is on the roadways. And very probably that that fiber line will be in West Cliff by about June-ish. Now another thing, a little bit of information that we found out at the CDOT CIP meeting with Aeronautics Division. Aeronautics is looking to see how they can fund an AWAS system at the airport with no copay,
Right.
no matching funds. And they said it's because the fiber is coming to Custer County. Now, they know a little more than I do about that, and they also told us that it's a possibility that they might be able to figure out how to fund the maintenance of it yearly. We're sitting right in the middle of a big black hole, so to speak, a void of weather information, especially since the tower at Levita Pass took a hit during the fire last year, and the Butterfly Pass at the Monarch Pass. Their AWAS system.
I was lost.
They've been fighting that thing for several years, and it's just not as reliable as they would want it to be. So they said that because of that, the fiber's coming. Therefore, they want to try to put that AWAS, and it would be state-owned, and they take care of it, hopefully. So that's just what little information that I know about it, and I'm trying to find out more every day if I can. So, anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Bob Stern. Bob Fulton. Master down
sit right there, be comfortable, whatever.
I belonged to Dallas a long years. I like to find out my own information, so I stopped one day down when the guys were burying it, and I said, "Where are you guys going?" They said, "We're going up here." I said, "Well, you can come to Westwood?" He said, "Yeah, we're coming to Westwood too." So, and Bob is, as I've seen that on Wolf Creek Pass, they went right down the eastbound lane coming down Wolf Creek, right on that. So that's the input I have on that. And along those lines as well, I met a young man Thursday night that moved from Tulsa. He's up on PPAP high enough so he can do his remote business of structural engineering out of Tulsa, and he can't wait till it gets here so he can move into Custer County. There's one customer we might get. So anyway, thank you for your leadership this morning. That was awesome. You had a little tough situation and you handled it remarkably well. Thank you for that, as from a citizen standpoint. I appreciate that. And I know I may have brought this up to you earlier, but on the new Justice Center, which again, I think I commended you on that when that came up to public comment, but that's showing for the future. You know, don't wait till the cat will get out of the gate before you say that the gate was left open. So we're looking forward to that. Input on that is pride in what we have here, and hopefully we'll make it a wonderful looking structure that we all can be proud of. And one of them is really cool is over in Alamosa, if you haven't seen that one. They really did a nice job on that. And one thing, and I just got little bits and pieces this morning with the airport, and I always wondered why we put that thing right next to the highway, and anyway, but that's changing, but also sparked an interest in the partnership with CDOT and all this stuff going on, and the 6-aught. There's an opportunity there maybe just to plant a seed with both 6-aught and Navajo. Do they want some broadband down the road? Maybe they could help us get this thing coming up here, and you just never know. You plant a seed and you say, hey, we're already talking about that, and maybe they're coming up from Walsenburg and all that kind of stuff. So just for instance, maybe it's food for thought.
Yeah, that's been talked about also, pulling that fiber line from Walsenburg up here, and
that's the easiest road to come.
Yeah. It would be easier, but
we had that conversation with CDOT at our last meeting.
So
about coming from the south.
So. And they can do that quick as a link. My brother-in-law lives in New Mexico, and he lives in a subdivision of 1,000 homes. and they brought fiber into those homes in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, but I don't remember what the cost was. It was like $1 million a mile, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing it over to, on the Silver Thread Valley. I'm doing a project over there for BOM, and they're ripping fiber-optic from Creed on up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to nowhere, you know, but they're going.
Yeah,
They bring up good points. From what we know, from an Indian point of view, there's a lot of rumors floating around. People were thinking that we're breaking ground out there for an Indian casino.
Oh, yeah,
The Indian nation bought that not to develop, but to have a sacred piece of. There's one mountain left. They had 4 mountains that form a rectangle, and Blanca was the 4th one, and this gets them on the national forest in that mountain because they're sacred ground. So I don't expect to see any need for broadband, but who knows? You know. Odd 6 maybe, but that would be something Orfano County would be putting in up toward them probably. I don't know. And then CDOT is told us on that line, they truncated that line on the hardscrap. It's not going anywhere, and they have no plans. They made it aerial. They came out of the ground there, and it goes aerial from there to service the homes that are existing. What will bring it up will be the 6 miles that we've been talking about that will be occurring in this meeting on Friday to discuss how they would use the governor's money or the Obama money or the new push. They're really excited about it, and they are putting their expert up here as Bill to discuss teaming up to do that.
It's coming.
We'll get them. It'll happen. There will be a fiber in there. Only for no other reason than to support the CDOT initiatives, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for that branch off of 96 coming up to my house so I can get some communication.
Don't wait too long. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might live that long.
I don't know if I will.
I got you by a bunch of years.
One of the things that CDOT mentioned too, and we had not talked about it today, they're under a lot of pressure to be able to put traffic signs, digital signs all over the state, and they want to fire those with
and cameras too.
Well, that's the whole point. That's what I tried to point out, is how you see the deer and the sensors and the weather. They want a weather observation piece in there as well.
Yeah, we make our decisions. I get online and see that all the time. See what's going
Big
on.
Brother's everywhere. I worry about it a little bit.
Yeah, that's true too.
You gotta be careful about those cameras that are out there. You don't stop your car and get out anymore.
My thoughts exactly.
I hide behind the tree.
Yeah. I don't know if that'll work either.
Any other comments come before the board?
You've done a good job. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
One thing before we close is we probably will do it at another time, but we do need to work a contract with the economic development guy, some kind of formal thing we'll figure out.
I think probably send a MOU would be more appropriate than a contract.
Well, we've got to be able to, but we've got to make it specific enough so that we get visibility in the spending, the technical details that we want to be involved in.
If they want to keep coming to you for money, they're going to have to adhere with whatever we agree.
And in the past, they haven't been doing that. They've been given a grant and they execute it.
Right.
And then that helps the miscommunications piece. And part of the problem is they are so wedded to it, they hear what they want to hear, and they're afraid of rocking the boat. So it's hard to have objective discussions on options if you're not doing that as a routine to begin with. So I'm looking forward to doing it. After the first of the year, we'll figure out something.
Anything else, gentlemen, come before the commission today?
Nope.
Second that one.
Been moving second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. Carried.
Discussion on that?
No discussion on that.
You can object all you want, but we'll see you.
But I agree with this one.